Hey, Agent, how's it going? You are the first one. That's exactly right. Let me see if I got a good little model here. Yeah. I got a good little set of talks here to do. Zorgal, how's it going? I appreciate that, Agent. Give me a second here. I'm gonna pop up my. Let me make sure I have everything up where I want it for what we're talking about today. And it looks like you guys can see what we're talking about, so that's good. Yeah, let me transition over here. Okay, so I only have a little bit of time. I got family coming over here in a little bit, and then me and the wife have been hanging out. But we're kind of continuing a talk that we did yesterday, where I'm just trying to kind of pass along, for people that want to get into the Linux engineering field. A lot of times you get in on the administration side, move over to engineering. And we were looking at a job specifically with my company, Redline, right, the company that I work for. I think we have about 50, 60 people that work at Redline. We do a lot of government contracts and stuff. And we specialize in the high performance compute space. We're almost universally, all of us have a Linux, and then a lot of us have a networking background as well. And then we do high performance compute, right? That's mostly what we work in. So I tried to show you guys some of the things yesterday. This is all up in the Discord for anybody that needs these notes. But what we wanted to do was kind of come down here and continue on with some of these preferred skills and things that people kind of needed. These are preferred skills, not required skills, but I was going to talk about these as well, kind of as we go. And then what I did today too was I put in one of my old talks in the back here, what's going on in the background for PowerPoint. And this is about how to excel in the engineering field. It's a talk that I give quite a bit to the stream and quite a bit to the group or people that want to work through this stuff and learn this kind of stuff. So basically it's about learning how you learn and then what kind of ways you can keep yourself sharp in the engineering field. So let's just add these things and then go look at some of these. So one of the things here that it says right up for preferred skills is experience with system engineering in addition to systems administration. So this job, I think when we first looked at it, it's technically a HPC engineer, but a lot of times they want you to be able to do good Linux systems administration. You got to be able to keep the supercomputer running, right? So that's kind of a big part of it to start. And come down here, and they say they want you to know some system engineering in addition to system administration. So what's the difference, right? Like I've told you guys often that you typically get into the field on the system administration side of things, and then you move over into engineering. And if you guys have never seen this little drawing here, I'll pull this drawing up for you guys because I think that this one helps you to see if you're just not in this space and you're like, well, where do we go? This is kind of the way that I think of it. And this comes from a methodology that some of you might recognize from Cisco, and it's the PPDIOO methodology. So this is a deployment methodology that we use in Cisco for networks, but it's true of all engineering. I think it's an absolutely fantastic way to show you guys kind of the stuff that's going on. Agent, you said you want a job in a SOC or NOC, anywhere around these types of things. I'm still in retail, but doing my cybersecurity degree in uni. Nice. Based in the UK. Okay. Yeah, I'd tell you, like, I haven't ever looked for jobs in the UK, and I'm sure, there's, sites like Jobbing and whatever, Monster Jobs or whatever the different job sites are that exist out in the world. I would tell you, yeah, just keep looking for those. Keep looking for NOC and SOC in your searches, but also look for third shift, because when, especially when you're first trying to break in, that's one of the things that I would tell you to do is make sure you're not excluding. Look, I mean, people always ask how do you get into tech, and it's like you kind of fall into it in a lot of ways. Now, you can plan a lot. You're going to college, you're doing that kind of stuff, but some of it you have to kind of fall into your role. Oh, let me move this up so you guys can see chat. Oops, I didn't mean to drop that in front of everything. So give me a second here. Let me get my other things back in the way, but I need to move this up so chat isn't so jacked up. There you go. All right, you guys should be able to see chat there. But anyways, this is where I was starting. Sysadmins tend to start on the left side of this, and it's in operations and optimization. So the way the PPDIO methodology works is we prepare, plan, design, implement, operate, and optimize systems, whatever we're building, whatever we're doing, right? Well, if you come in as a sysadmin, especially a junior sysadmin, you're probably not architecting stuff for people. You're probably not taking some cold hardware sitting in the corner, putting it into data center racks and getting it going. That's probably not where you're going to start. Just let me level set that for everybody. I'm not trying to be mean about that. That's just probably not where your career is going to start. Also, Julius Caesar over on YouTube, how's it going? Yeah, I'm reading chat as I kind of talk or whatever. Agent, I would just say don't exclude it or look for third shift. Yeah, sometimes they call it that, but typically NOC would be a good search term, I would think, or network operations, even though you're trying to be in the systems administration, systems engineering side for sure. But anyways, back over here. Sysadmins start here. You typically admin by running systems. You do what we call keep the lights on, KTLO. That is the concept of keeping the lights on. We have a fleet of servers. We have a fleet of whatever systems we have, and they are just running along as they go. And your job is to keep the lights on, keep everything working, keep everything at the status quo. Whatever was built originally and pushed off, you keep it as close to that system baseline as possible. If you have to make changes for users, if you have to do any kind of changes to the environment to continue to support the mission of whatever your system mission is, you're documenting it, you're putting it into a configuration management database so that changes are marked and can be redone if they need to. And also then it helps with like if we talk about risk profiles and risk registers, somebody in your company, in small companies maybe not, but in bigger companies, somebody's tasked with keeping track of what risks you're carrying in the company. And if we're making changes to systems, presumably changing the security baseline, updating things and that kind of stuff, we're changing the risk profile of the system. So the point is you're documenting the things you're doing. You're not just out there wild west shooting off in the air and doing whatever you want, right? So that's kind of that. Agent, you said you got your A+, Net+, and Sec+ for about a year now. Those are good ones to start. And I don't know, so by the way, Agent, I don't know how the UK does it if you're over on that side of the pond. Over here in the US, for government jobs, there's a criteria, I don't know, it's like 8570 or something. We could look it up if we want, but it's the criteria of basically you're this, like, those certs count for a certain tiering of now you're qualified for certain government jobs, and that's like in the cybersecurity space. I think they have something like that over there, but I don't know what it's called. I mean, we can go Google it and look around and stuff, but a lot of times you have those. And also, Agent, if you're new in your field, let me pull this up here. You lead with what your strengths are. So let me pull something up real quick here for you guys. I think it's under documents. When you're making your resume, right? I'm going to show you guys my generic resume short. I keep my resume to under. I keep it to under a page. I don't know why this is called Donald anything, but this is my This is my resume here. Actually, if I open it, well, I could just open it in. Hold on. Let's open it this other way because it'll be easier for you guys to see. Documents. What I was going to say though is you want to lead with what your strengths are. Head resume doc. Here we go. Let me pull this one up. So this is my actual resume, but it's changed around. Oh shit! Too much stuff in my way over here. Hold on. All right. Move this right here, and then I'll make it go like this, and then like this. So the reason what I was going to point out is you said you have an A+, a Net+, and a Security+, right? I would lead with those. If you don't have any other experience in the field, I would 100% lead with those because those are going to be what catches people's eyes. Then other stuff, like I always put like a summary at the top of kind of like what I have or what I know. Again, this stuff is not my real information up here, but all of this stuff is my real information, generalized. And then I put the things that I think are the least important at the bottom. Like my education hasn't helped me get a single engineer. Well, it may have helped me at like certain, like when I worked at Lockheed Martin and I needed a master's degree to work for them. But generally speaking, like in the engineering space, you just have to be able to do this stuff. So you have to be able to prove, that you understand these things, that you can talk to these things, you understand that you've done these different things in the space and that kind of stuff. But anyways, what I'm saying is when you're first starting out, you're going to lead with what your strengths are, which in your case are those certifications and that kind of stuff. And I would keep it pretty short, anyways. Zorgel said third shift has its advantages. Get to study. That's true. That's a big part of it, actually. When I tell you guys here, that third shift idea, you are operating the systems, you're keeping them running, but what are you doing with the rest of your time? I mean, you could be reading comic books, you can be putting your feet up, you know, just watching monitors and that kind of stuff. But if you're sitting around optimizing the system and trying to do things better, it's going to help you get noticed. And people always ask me, and I have this stuff down in the Discord, but like, what do I do to optimize the system? Well, let's say you're just sitting there reading through your DocuWiki and you're just fixing stuff. You're fixing errors, you're fixing versions. You know, somebody, even my documents on one of our Discord labs for people, it said go into this box and make sure you're on Rocky 9.3. Well, we're up on Rocky 9.6 in the environment now. And somebody stopped me and said, well, that's wrong. And I said, it's a subversion. It doesn't really, in the big operating systems world, it's not that big of a deal. Now, if we were talking about like high performance compute and we were off versions, big deal. But when we're first learning operating systems, you know, what does it really matter in the big, if you're on a Red Hat or a Rocky or a CentOS box? I mean, CentOS isn't really being supported anymore, but Alma, like at the end of the day, you got to get the basic skills before we start to talk about like those finer points and stuff. So anyways, where I'm going with that is, in your optimization, you're just fixing stuff, and people start to notice, hey, this guy, when he's up late at night, he's got all these commits into our document registry, and he's always just updating things. Or, you know, something's happening late at night and you're documenting it in your work tickets, but you're maybe also making sure it's in the wiki. Like I do this a lot. Like I'll update the wiki because I don't want to get called about stuff. So then I'll just be like, oh yeah, here, you know, when I respond to somebody's email or something on Slack, I'll say, oh, hey, this is where I documented. So then they know in the future that they can go directly to my stuff because my stuff's always updated. And I do that, guys. I don't do that because I'm like, oh, fucking break my arm real quick, patting myself on the back. That's not why I do that. I do that because I want to be off on the weekends, and I don't want to get called by junior engineers who, you know, they don't know where to look. They just know that I worked on it, so then I get a call out. I try to avoid that kind of stuff. So anyways, this is a Cisco methodology, but this is a very good way of looking at how your job's probably going to be if you're an admin trying to work over into engineering, right? You're going to start as an admin. You're going to keep systems running that are already there. You're going to work in, like I show my network engineers all the time, you're going to work in subnets that are already there. This is why we need to know subnetting, because somebody already set this before you got there, and you can't just change it. So you got to know these things, right? So anyway, so then we optimize, and then we move over into project work, which as an engineer is probably like 80% of your job. You're preparing, planning, designing, implementing things. A lot of times we spin in the implementation factor. So if we go back to my notes, which we were going through notes, so they want you to know systems engineering stuff. Hey, thanks for the follow. Hopefully this stuff's useful to you, to Nori, or I don't know how to say that. We'll just say Sten. Hopefully this stuff's useful to you. Let's go right here, and I'd say experience with system engineering. In addition to this, I would say build out of new systems, and then within the build out of new systems is following security benchmarks. Right, and then what are the security benchmark? They're STIGs, which is your secure technical implementation guides. And then if you're doing like CIS, so that's Center for Internet, I think it's Internet Security, CIS. You need to know how to build to these standards, right? So, you say, well, how do you do that? Well, in the government space, let me show you guys my little STIG viewer. Where's my STIG viewer? Here it is. I'll show you guys STIGs. We have whole labs on these for you guys that want to get into this. Mine are a little dated too, and I know this is bright. But let's say we wanted to harden a RHEL Linux. So the older one, I think mine's on, yeah, what do I have? I have April 2nd of 2025. Guys, there's newer ones out there. You got to download the newer ones, especially if you're dealing directly with ISOs. I have older ones loaded up. But there's 452 STIG rules that you harden a box to. Now, lest you think, oh, shoot, I have to go learn 452 rules. You don't have to do that. That's not the point of this. What you're actually going to do is you typically, there's kind of a back and forth where you harden them with like Ansible playbooks, which you either maintain yourself or there's all kinds of them online. Like if you wanted to to dig into this. By the way, the Stig viewer is free. But if you wanted to dig into Ansible Lockdown, here's the Ansible Lockdown repository for both the CIS and the Stig benchmark. So I'll link this. I'll put this in here as well. By the way, these notes are in the Discord, so as I do these, they pop up in our Discord. Agent, you said you've been working on the Try Hack Me and Hack the Box labs. Nice. Yeah, I would tell you just get as much time in the systems as you can. I would also say make sure that if you're, I think you've said you want to do Linux, right? I mean, if you're hanging out with us, you probably want to do Linux. I would say get your hands on Linux as much as you can. You need to be able to do command line like this. I mean, you have to be fluent in this. You have to be able to talk to this, speak with other engineers about it. In a lot of, maybe not junior roles, but in later roles, they'll sometimes just drop you into the command line like this and make sure that you know how to maneuver a command line and you're not just getting lost on something. And then you just have to be able to kind of move around. Yeah, you run Fedora. Okay, nice. Yeah. So you understand, you know, like what's going on with the disks. You know, you understand what's going on. We asked a question, and I was in technical interview the other day for a high performance compute role, and somebody was moving over. A lot of people spoke very highly of him. The person had been a Linux admin, but the last couple of years he was doing like more management stuff. And we asked him, how do you check how much memory is free on a server? And he like didn't. I mean, he didn't know. He didn't even try like to guess or anything. He's just like, I don't know that. I don't. I would send that to one of my junior guys, and it's like, man, you gotta a little something. I mean, yeah. How's it going, Smitty? Yeah, it's been a while. It says it's actually funny. It says that's your first time chat, and I'm like, no, I've definitely talked to Smitty #1 quite a bit on here. So, I made you #1 right there. That's funny. Yeah, but this, and look, the guy actually kind of recused himself during the interview, so I don't know that he would even accept something even if we did offer it to him, because I think he realized, like, I mean, and sometimes people think I'm being, I don't know, people probably think I'm joking about this, but I literally live all day in the engineering space. I just live at the command line all day. I don't do anything out here besides notes. So we were talking about notes and how I do notes. This was something from yesterday. And when I do notes, I kind of have these 3 levels of note taking that I do. But other than that, and other than coming into, you know, any other type of terminal that I've moved into, all of my work stuff is done via command line all day, right? And like, you know, I never thought, when I was younger, I didn't think, oh, I'd be working on computers like that. I just thought I'd be clicking around, like, you know. But nope, that's how I live. So anyways, you gotta be able to do that stuff. Where else were we at? Let me pull my notes back up here. We were down here. We were talking about the difference, between a systems engineer and a systems administration. So you have to be able to build out new systems, right? You have to be able to. This is very important, I think, as an engineer. Document the process to get to where your current system is at. So I get pulled off of projects, I get moved around within my company, I go do other things. And when I leave, the next guy has to be able to pick up exactly where I left off. So this is a lot of times, you know, we use a tool often called Confluence. And that's just documentation. So you can do all your documentation in Confluence. I think that's an Atlassian tool, so it's like it's in the same vein as like Jira and those other tools. But this will be con boards. You guys all seen everybody here know what a con board is? I think I have one in my home lab still. I definitely have one in my home lab. Hold on. Let's go pull it up real quick, because it's funny, you'll be like, Scott, you don't do crap that you say you're gonna do. You're right, I don't. Not in my home lab. I think he's here. Where is he? I know he's here. Let's go see where he's at. I thought it was Conboard. You guys don't see anything for Conboard up there, do you? I know Grep didn't find it, but could have sworn I had... I'm trying to think of what other names I would have had for it. Huh. Where did I put him? Let's go... Where's he at? We could do this. Hold on. Where are my servers at? I was thinking that maybe... Yeah. I don't know where I put that guy. It's been so while. It's been so long since I've been in there that if my system doesn't remember where it is, I don't know. But anyways, he's down in one of my environments somewhere. But con boards just look like this. If you've never seen one, they look like this. You just have, you know, backlog, what you're doing, what you're in review or finished, and then what's done in your environment. And you can break them up a whole bunch of other ways than this. You know, they get real complex like this if you want, or they can be real simple. And you can have as many more things than just backlog, doing, review, and done as you want. Like some of these, there's multiple lines of them. But they come from where you used to just be able to go actually do a whiteboard and have sticky notes, right? That's where they originally come from. So, yeah, con boards, those kind of things. Like what are you working on? Some people do, you know, people do sprints, people do all kinds of agile, whatever. At the end of the day, you're building, engineers build work artifacts that then get deployed into projects. You want those to be reusable across as much, you know, or as much as possible, right? You want that to be kind of reusable, because then that adds more value to your work, right? Like engineers are paid really well, and if you have to keep figuring out the same thing over and over again, that's not of great benefit to my company, or it doesn't add a lot of value to companies that my company bills for my time, right? Like on the other side of it is if I'm good at building things and keeping track of what I've built, then when another project comes along and my company puts my time to it, I can get stuff done faster, leaving me more time for Netflix and other stuff. And then they are happy because within the scope of time that they gave the customer, we've delivered whatever deliverables we have, right? Engineers, a lot of times, I mean, it's just, this is a good way to think about it, is we check boxes, right? We check boxes. Follow requirements to build systems. That's what we do as engineers. And you say, well, I want to be the guy who writes the requirements. Okay, well, that's more on like the architect side. That's more on the, you know, that's probably working for, in my case, would be working with the government to determine requirements before things get built. But when something comes to me, typically the requirements are already set. You know, the task is set. We have to you know, carry it out or whatever. So, let me make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, Smitty, you got banned. That's funny. I mean, that's probably not funny. Maybe you were causing trouble in other channels, but that's kind of funny. You've been around here for a while without causing problems, so that's good. Let's see, cloud administration. So anyways, this is the thing. They're just saying systems engineering on top of maybe some of these other things. Hector, how's it going? Man, I haven't seen Hector in a while either. That's not your fault. I haven't been streaming much. I think I've streamed like maybe 6 times since February. So like I wanted to get some more time in, and the easiest thing for me to do is just come on and talk jobs and talk Linux and that kind of stuff. There's Colchis. Colchis is one of our regulars as well. He runs a couple of really good programs inside of our Discord. For you guys that have not been on our Discord, right? You can always join it for free. I think we're up at like 4,800 people almost now. That's my college alarm that just went off. But yeah, we've got the Bash study group that he runs, and then also the Linux from Scratch group that he's running right now here too as well. So if you guys are familiar with what the Linux from Scratch project is, there's the information on that. I'm just running the Linux admin course right now. I'm planning the high performance compute course. I have that kind of organized. One of our guys did some graphics for me. One of our guys, Treasure, that does a lot of kind of, he's over in Japan now, so it's like a little harder for him on time to work directly with us. But he and I kind of keep in touch with a lot of the stuff. So anyway, so what were we doing? We were talking about hardening systems and building them to standards. Ansible Lockdown is a great way to not try to do this from scratch. You know, you got 452 STIGs and they're telling you to do all this crap with your systems. And this is also a little exercise I give the people that do our security engineering course. Well, if we know 452 STIGs would harden a box, secure technical implementation hardlines or guidelines would harden a box. If we know that, why don't we just deploy all servers and always just lock them down? Look at all these playbooks. There's the playbooks to do all this stuff. There's some that you have to subscribe to get to, and that's fine. But like RHEL 9, if you're still on RHEL 9 and you need the CIS hardening, here you go. This will remediate and fix all of it to a CIS benchmark and harden it all the way down. Or there's now your STIG one, STIG RHEL 9. That's your company standard. You just harden it to 452 STIGs and go like this. You give them a thumbs up and you walk out the door. Well, why don't we just do that? Like, if we know we should harden a box, well, the thing is, you'll harden a box to a point where it's unusable, right? It'll be completely unusable for you. You'll lock down. Maybe you want to use a Linux box as a router in your environment, and you say, okay, I'll allow TCP forwarding on in like my sysctl, or some people call it systemctl. In my sysctl type commands, I'll set for TCP IP forwarding. That's not allowed in the STIG, so that you turn it off. And you go, well, I need that. Well, now you have to get an exception for your STIG. But I'm gonna just level set here for a second. In the systems engineering world for the government, you're never going to be using these devices as routers. You're going to have routers to do that. But what I'm saying is the Linux box is one of the oldest types of routers, right? We just have 2 ports on 2 different networks, and we can forward traffic between them, right? We can. Anyways, where I'm going with that is, yeah. So if anybody ever asks you, like, how easy is it to harden a box all the way to 100% STIG standard? It's the easiest thing in the world. You go run this playbook. But then to make that usable, you have to back things off. You have to make sure that your code still works, make sure your application still works, make sure maybe you're building a compute node image, that still has to work. There's a lot of like tweaking then, which is over here. You're trying to check the boxes, and then you have to follow your requirements, and then, you know, get exceptions for things that conflict between productivity and security. There's this old saying, and this is, I want to clarify as a person who does a lot of security. There's an old saying that's kind of important. It's security is the enemy of productivity. Now you might say, Scott, that's you know, you start clutching your pearls, or you're having a grabber over here, right? What'll happen is, where I go with that is I say, well, no, but it's true. Like, if you could just walk in from the parking lot at work and get right into your office, you would do things a lot faster than if you had to find a parking spot, lock your car, walk in, make sure you have your badge. Forgot your badge in the car, gotta go back out. You gotta badge in, pass security, right? Then when you get down to your system, you have to log in, you have to have a password. Then you have to get into your single sign-on or multi-factor authentication situation once you get in your terminal. All those things are slowing you down. Now you say, but security is required because that actually keeps us safe. And I say, no, that's true. That's I'm not saying security is bad when I say security is the enemy of productivity. I'm just saying security tools do slow you down. They do, right? As engineers, we'd want to just push our gas down on our servers and make them go as fast as possible. But a lot of times we have other stuff going on as well. And that's where I always bring up the old question that I remember from when I was a kid. It's like, well, so do brakes, how important are brakes for going really fast in your car? And a lot of people be like, oh, they're not that important. Brakes just slow you down. And you say, yeah. But hold on, what if your brakes go out? And you have to drive your car home? How fast are you going to go? I bet not more than like 5 miles an hour, right? So security does protect you in some ways. But anyways, where I'm going with that is, Kolkus said the LFS stuff is lots of fun so far. I would love to see the HPC stuff. Yeah. I'm getting it going, Kolkus. I've had this in my head for like over a year. I just haven't put it down on paper. I also have 5 more labs to write for the automation course to be done. So I've had those ones in my head for a long time too. You guys will find that I have a lot of stuff written up here. I just don't I don't put it. This is where my dissertation is right now too. My dissertation. I'm supposed to be finishing chapter 4 this month. Well, in April. Guys, I am not on chapter 4 right now in my dissertation. So a dissertation for a systems engineering PhD is 5 chapters, right? Typically. There's some modifications there, but 5 general chapters. I'm on chapter 4 right now. My chapter 1 is a complete mess. My chapter 2 is a complete mess. My chapter 3 is a complete mess. And my chapter 4 is not a complete mess. It's just not written. So you're like, oh, well, that's terrible, Scott. I know. I have a lot of it ready to go. I just, I have notes all over the place, right? I use a tool called Zotero. It's great. I have all kinds of research. I just need to pull it all together. Yeah. And then Colchis, I had family in town this whole week too. So I had my brother Matt came down from Idaho. He hasn't been down here in since me and the wife got married. So probably 7 or 8 years now. And then the grandbaby was just in town until yesterday. So I'm just kind of catching up now. So, all right. Anyways, cloud administration, Azure, GCP, AWS, the big ones. The big ones all have free training. So I would just say, AWS has all kinds of, if I just said AWS training, look, they're going to have all kinds of certifications, but before you even go, they have all these courses that are just free for you to go dig around in. So you could just go to AWS. I didn't know that it was dot training. That's funny. Azure, they all have free training. Azure probably has, I honestly think Azure has some of the best training around. Let's say, let's go Azure training. They have so much, you can go read so much stuff in here for free. You don't even have to sign up for an account. You can just get in there and start doing stuff. So let's see if I can find the actual Azure training. Yeah, I think it's just learn.microsoft. Yeah. Here's, look, just a massive amount of things to go do for free. Because people always tell me, they're like, hey, Scott, I like doing Linux, and by the way, guys, what I'm about to say, I will never shame you for. People are like, hey, Scott, I like doing Linux, but I want to go be a DevOps guy. Or, Scott, I like doing Linux, but I'm a programmer. And I go, fine with me. Not everybody wants to live at the command line like us, Linux nerds do. But you can still do Linux as a base. You can still kick it, right? I tell people you don't have to be in the Linux field to hang out with us. But where I'm going with that is, you say, hey, I have a base of Linux, but I want to go get into DevOps roles. They have all kinds of different roles and stuff to go. Maybe you want to look, man, this is management and governance has never been my thing. I don't want to monitor and enforce and have to go smack other people's hands in the company. That's not what I want to do. I'm not a big fan of being a compliance guy. For other people, that sounds wonderful. Running around with a little badge or having their little hall monitor stash, that sounds wonderful, right? Even Bart Simpson did it once. If you guys don't remember, Bart as the hall monitor was hilarious. He goes, he sees the bullies and they're smacking Milhouse's belly, giving him a pink belly. And Bart comes over and he's like, yeah, move it along, guys. That belly ain't getting any pinker. I don't know. I think it's kind of funny. Agent said, yeah, I got this. As long as I enjoyed the process. Yeah. No, I'm having a fun time with the process, but I definitely need to get a lot more stuff organized. Anyways, I'll drop this here for training Azure. And then Google Cloud Platform, I don't even know with GCP, but I have friends that have gotten their certs. I've had an AWS, a few AWS certs, and I've had an Azure cert, but I've never gotten a Google Cloud Platform one. But I imagine I could just go GCP training, and I'd be willing to bet it's going to drop me GCP, right? Google Cloud Training, and look, cloud.google learning training. Here's training resources. Boom. I'd be willing to bet there's something like this just there. By the way, anybody wondering about these notes, I'll put these notes up in the Discord like I did last night. I always put them in the wrong, I don't know, maybe I was tired last night when I got off, but I always put them down. Fucking you guys. Anyways, I always put them down here in meeting notes when I don't lose my mind and put them in Ansible notes on accident, but they'll be right here. So these are all the notes for last night, and then I'm just adding to them for today. All right, I know I'm jumping around a lot, but this is kind of my thoughts on this stuff. Now, experience with deploying and supporting computation models and simulation and high-performance compute infrastructure, on-premise and cloud with containers. Okay, this one, I mean, you can run HPC workloads outside of big environments, but you can't really get experience supporting them outside of doing it, and that's an unfortunate one. So this is one that the best I can tell you is we are going to have an HPC course. I am going to lay out how NIST 800-223, which is that's the high performance compute standard that we kind of build our our supercomputers to. And you might say HPC or supercomputer, what is it? Well, high performance compute is the discipline and the field, but supercomputers are what we build. So you say supercomputers. Oh, I showed this a little bit yesterday, but it's like the idea is you take all these nodes and turn them into one node, and then jobs are kicked off from one place, and all the back end compute nodes, treated as one. They're treated as one big compute resource. And then you can carve that up with partitions and different stuff depending on this next part where we talk about tools and stuff. All right, so, well, it'll be down here with Slurm and Moab, or even some of these other ones. Where are we at? So knowledge and understanding of application hosting, with experience using cloud services and commercial infrastructure as infrastructure as a service, and then platform as a service environment. So I would tell you this is very similar to number 2. So similar to number 2. But I would tell you maybe in like AWS terms, think about the developer associate cert, which I think I've held that, and I'm pretty sure Fisherman Guybro has that as well. So he's one of the guys in our Discord. He's the guy that writes the bot that is always yelling at me and stuff. The developer associate cert kind of shows you how these workloads work, and if you are, migrating code up there and that kind of stuff. I'll be honest, there's not a lot of this now in the high performance compute space, but we do run a fair amount of Kubernetes. Kubernetes is not quite a platform as a service, but the concepts are similar. In that, when we want to be able to burst up into the cloud from workloads that are on a local supercomputer, we almost always have to, there's like one of two ways to do it. You can either model everything up in the cloud exactly the same to be as you have down in that. So the big resources, exact same libraries, you have to have a build pipeline. Like there's just all this stuff that makes that a hassle. Or you can run container. You can start to containerize your workloads, and then containerized workloads just burst right up into the cloud. There are still memory and other, compute and that kind of stuff. All those things have to be the same, but that's a lot easier to do within a containerized environment. So to burst into other resources is easier as far as that goes. Anyway, so that's something to think about there. This one, we actually covered this one earlier. So Red Hat certification are preferred but not required. And I had put this up here when we were talking about required skills, getting the skills in the space. And I kind of gave you, you got to know your objectives. And then I also talked about one of the guys in our Discord has a really good, and I say that as like a lot of people have looked at this and really like his GitHub. So I'll link this to you guys actually, because if you like his GitHub, go star it. You can even do pull requests and all that stuff on it as well. But he's one of the guys. He's down our Discord. He publishes his GitHub for people. Let me see if I can just. I guess I can drop it right here. His GitHub is on getting your RHCSA, and he just updated it for RHEL 10. So if you're going to take a RHEL 10 version, he just went and put it all together. He's also got Vagrant on there, so if you guys haven't used Vagrant, it'll help you to stand up the lab environment real quick. You just put it on the system, and it'll go deploy. He's also got some Anki flashcards, which is cool. I used to do Anki flashcards on stream. I would just have them. I wanted to have a way to just have them run in the top where people could just answer the questions as we talked about other stuff. But it was hard to get that working, so I didn't stick with it. But yeah, he's got a bunch of stuff in here. So people that have went through this really like his notes. So please go in there, star it if you're a GitHub enjoyer, which most of us are. All right, server automation experience. I really think this is this is my personal thoughts on this. I really think this is where engineers start to excel, is understanding automation. Like, you've been sitting around building servers for a long time, right? Like maybe you're just an engineer, or maybe you're an admin that's been doing stuff. But do you make stuff repeatable? Do you build stuff so that you can just hand it off to somebody else and they can push a button and build the same thing as you? This is really where I don't know. I don't know how to put this, except this is like where the mids and the seniors and the principals start to separate themselves out from just somebody who just kind of is collecting a paycheck as an engineer, right? Like, you can do well. Hey, Fisherman, I was just mentioning you a little bit ago because we were talking about AWS, and I mentioned that I think you and I have both held the developer associate cert. I don't remember if you redid yours or not. I didn't redo mine, but we were talking about like workloads and being able to burst up into the cloud a little bit. So yeah, Fisherman, he's one of my mods too, apparently. I think he's got so much power, but his bot definitely talks trash to me a lot. And then we were talking about so this is in our job search. These are preferred skills or experience for the job that we were looking at yesterday. And again, this is with my company, so the company that I work for, Redline. We come down here. Okay, so you have to practice this. I think these are the levels of things that I think you need to know for any of these tools. How to install and get it on the system. These are my notes. These are like I write these out so much that, and I show these to engineers so often that I just know these ones. So you need to know whether you're using Puppet or Foreman or Ansible or Salt or, I mean, just name them, right? There's a bunch of them. Ansible's kind of the king right now. Terraform's a big one too. But you got to be able to get it on the system, right? Check the version, that kind of stuff. And then you need to know how to populate the inventory. I could be the best shot in the world with a pistol, and if I, don't have any targets or I don't know what I'm shooting at, there's a movie. Oh man, there's a movie that bothers me so much. I think it's like one of the worst movie. I mean, it's like my blood's boiling even thinking about it. A movie called The Hills Have Eyes. You guys ever seen that? It's one of the worst fucking movies I've ever seen. But neither here nor there. There's a scene where they're making a big deal about how this dad was like a cop for 20 years, and then he was like a firearms instructor for the police, and he's a badass. And then he gets a little spooked by these, creatures, whatever. I'm not gonna spoil it for anybody. It's a terrible movie, so don't watch it. But and in the dark, he just starts firing off into the night, and I'm like, what? He doesn't even have a single target. What the? And then he gets, he gets killed or whatever. But it's really dumb. But it's like you watch these things and you're like, what the hell? Oh man, that movie made me so mad for so many other reasons too. But that's I don't even know how I finished that movie. But anyway, so where I'm going with that is, if you don't have a target, it doesn't matter how good you are at doing whatever you're doing. And it's the same thing here. But similar to this, right? If you can build an inventory, then the rest becomes easy between 2 servers and 1,000 servers. It's all to me that part. Why can't I get this? There we go. Then you have to be able to execute it. The tool, right? Execute the tool against your inventories. These are things that I think you need to be able to do. And then what would be the last one, right? It would be, then you have to able to write things, playbooks, actions, recipes, I don't know, for your tool, right? And those can all be generic terms or specific terms. For me, I have playbooks on this, and my playbooks follow that model that I just described, or learning how to do this. Oh, well, I jumped right into that. Let's go out one, just to my labs. Right here. Someone link this in here, right? Because, by the way, if you guys don't know, Killer Code is completely free, and I don't get anything besides the satisfaction of knowing people are using my labs. But it's like install Ansible, set up a host file, being able to build your inventory file out, and then just start being able to execute Ansible. That's what my labs kind of show you guys how to do. Oh, no, Agent, there were things in that movie that just boil my blood even to today thinking about. That I'm just like, oh my gosh. Anyways, Atticus over on the YouTube side, how's it going? We're just kind of hanging out, talking about that job stuff from yesterday. We're not working too hard, right? We don't work too hard around here. Hayes, how's it going? Hayes, I keep seeing you popping up stuff on your YouTube. I see you're still working on that stuff. I don't know if you know this, Hayes, but you can always, the first Hills Have Eyes was just so atrocious. I didn't know they did a remake of it. But where was I going with that? Hayes, if you ever want to drop any of that stuff in the Discord, you can, your YouTube stuff, you can always drop that in there. I'm not one of these guys that's like, nobody else can self-promote. I'm all for self-promotion. I think a big part of being an engineer is being able to blow off steam later. We're not all serious. So anyways, yeah. Hayes is one of our guys that builds, he writes a lot of, I don't want to call it techno, but he does a lot of synth type stuff. Like he has a lot of like computer generated sounds that he does and stuff. It's pretty cool stuff. So that's how open source works. Yeah, I think you have to be able to do all of this for open source too. But anyways, I got a bunch of playbooks and stuff. I need to write more. Also, I don't think this is super widely known, but these are all built off of a GitHub, right? My GitHub, just @Tanis, right? It's not hard to find me. Also, I think it's all over Discord and stuff. It's all over on the streams here too. You guys can actually write labs and do pull requests. I think we've had like 3 people ever maybe do like a lab or 2. I've had quite a few people help me edit labs over the years. Just like, hey, Scott, pull this. This is worded funny, and I'm like, oh, geez, I don't even know why I did that. But yeah, there's guys who have helped me over the years. I think Control Byte's one of them, one of the main ones that I think he's done every lab I've ever written. So, anyways, experiencing with job schedulers. All right, so Slurm is big. So let's say Slurm. That's also I don't even know what Moab is. I've never used Moab. We could probably look at that. Never used that. Big ones here that I have used are Platform LSF, which is IBM, right? Slurm is a company called Med. What is Slurm? I think it's slurm.org. It's Med something. Why can't SkedgeMD? That's what it is. Slurm documentation. So Slurm by Sketch MD, something like that, right? Moab, never used it. Slurm is super straightforward. I was actually just training people on this as a tool just recently out in Ohio. I actually have this on there, and I was showing how this works. Now, if you say how am I going to go get more experience with Slurm hands-on, I do have a lab on Slurm that'll show you how to build it. I have more labs I need to write, but labs on Killer Coda, and I will link the lab to you guys if you want it. So let's go to Killer Coda. I'll just go grab the lab real quick. Go find it. Oh, sorry, Hayes. I didn't know it was so bad. I'm gonna go grab this one lab real quick, which is Slurm. So this is my Slurm lab. I need to do more because I have so much more Slurm to show you guys. But this is at least to see how the Slurm control daemon on the master node, which I don't think we call anything master nodes anymore. It's probably like I don't even know what we call it. I think we just call it the controller node, and then all the worker nodes, all the compute nodes, right? And then how they communicate, because both of the processes will be up, and then you'll have your port open on what is port? What's the port for? Don't quote me on it. I think it's like 6,000 something. But Slurm actually talks using a tool called Munge. So you need Munge running as well, and then you need the Munge key to be pushed to all the servers. This is something that's actually really convenient to do in tools like Werewolf, where we can have things like overlays, and overlays can inherit files from the main node. So the main node can have the Munge key, and then you can make it inherit it to all the different compute nodes you have in the cluster or whatever. Runnemucker said job control. I've never used JCL. What is that? Is that job control language? The other one that I use is PBS Pro. So we'll go look at what all those are. I've never used JCL. platform LSF. Man, IBM. There's a whole thing here happened in the early 2000 teens, maybe 2014, where there was a open lava. Let's go see if we can find that on Wikipedia. This is a works. This came from when it was called before it was platform LSF, and so what happened was Open Lava was based on early version of the LSF, which is you can see what happened to it. They got sued out of existence by IBM, and I was working with this tool when this happened. So I was working with platform LSF when this happened, but it was actually an interesting thing. So I don't use platform LSF anymore, but I have used it in the past. It is a interesting tool. Anyways, go read that if you want. Slurm manages how you communicate and drop jobs into the cluster. So if I had if I had a way for my users to get into a system, and then I needed them to be able to kick off jobs, I don't want them just going to each individual compute nodes and running stuff, right? Oh, also, Agent over on the YouTube side, thanks for the Scott rules. I appreciate that. But yeah, you kick off jobs from kind of like terminals, if you want to think of it like that. We always have like our login nodes, and then login nodes are where users will put in jobs, and then the control daemon will schedule out to the different worker nodes based on the size of the job and the requested tasks and all these kind of things. So there's all kinds of stuff to go in there. Kilobyte, how's it going? Yeah, happy Monday. Kilobyte, you've been around a long time too. I haven't been streaming the last 2 months really. I've been super busy with other stuff, so I just figured I'd get a couple streams in before the end of the month, and then make sure that I'm kind of just talking with everybody. You know, telling people that we've got a Discord. Stuff's still going on down in Discord, right? People are still learning Linux. I think people should be able to learn Linux even without me around, even if I'm not streaming, right? I just mostly come on here to tell you guys that there's a place that they can go hang out and do all that stuff. Yeah, Kilobyte, I'm gonna be around. Sometimes I'll be doing stuff like this, talking about jobs and you know, the tasks that you're going to run into in your career, and then sometimes I'm also going to be working on my dissertation and research stuff. But mostly with you guys, I'll be pulling research down and reading it and kind of quantifying it, and then I'll feed it into my dissertation on my own time. But I want to just have a just chill place where we can kind of hang out and talk. And the wife's downstairs cutting the in-laws' hair. I could go hang out with the in-laws. That's fine. I got no problem with them. It's just that I figured I'd spend a little time up here. So, all right. So this is how Slurm works. I do have a lab on it that kind of shows that. I do need to put more labs together because I want to show you guys the Slurm DBD part of it. The back end, so Slurm by itself will just run and do things. It won't keep track of historical jobs or a lot of the monitoring type stuff isn't native to that. So what we do typically, there's two things that we do. Over on one of our boxes, typically not the main Slurm controller, you'll run like a Slurm exporter. And does anybody know, well, if we do a Slurm exporter, then we typically can scrape that with Prometheus, right? So if something is pushing up our data in key value in a way that can be scraped by Prometheus, now we can have all that tasty data to be promoted out into like Grafana. So right, Grafana, let's go look at Grafana Slurm dashboards. I was actually doing this in my training the other day. I was showing the guys, and this is maybe like what your Slurm exporter might look like. And you would have like all the nodes, how many nodes are up and down. That's huge in a cluster, because these are actual, the nodes that you have inside of Slurm are really the work capability of the cluster. This is almost like how much is my high performance compute system that I'm dealing with actually running. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, okay, right here, there's 600, there's total nodes, there's 700 total nodes, right? Well, having 700 total nodes in a system, like in a cluster, is absolutely irrelevant if you only have, you know, if so allocated nodes. So nodes are actually doing stuff. You got a 606 currently doing things, but of the 700, so what is that? You've got maybe about 12 to 13% not doing anything because they're either idle or they're completing in some way, right? Oh, and actually you have job, and if you look at this and you say there's 700 total nodes, I've got unknown states or states that aren't being allocated here. So I have some percentage of my cluster not doing anything. And we talked about this a while back, but in high performance compute, there's an expectation of, like, you know, a system this size. 700 is not huge, but it's a mid-sized supercomputer. That's an acceptable amount to have down, right? That's you're running about, what was that? That's about 87% or so ish. I mean, we pull out a calculator if we want, but that's about 87% of the cluster running, and then you've got 13% doing other things. That's okay. It's not great, but that's okay, right? That's definitely not in like the red zone for most clusters, right? Anyway, so this we were just talking about that a little bit, dashboards and that kind of stuff. The other thing, I said there were two things. One is monitoring. The other thing that's really important with this is what the database is doing here. Now, if you have the database turned on, there's two back-end databases. It can be MariaDB or Postgres. You can run whichever one you want. Connecting to it is pretty straightforward. And then we lock down that MariaDB. We do a STIG against it. So we were talking about STIGs earlier. We harden the MariaDB database so that only the connections that should be there are there, right? So those are your STIGs for that. Like, what do you harden? Well, you make sure that you're having server audit active, and then you're sending to wherever your audit is, and then maybe you're sending that off to our syslog and centralized logging in the company or your organization or whatever. I have a few labs that show you how to do logging type stuff, but Slurm DBD does two things. Then it keeps track of all the jobs that have completed, and it allows you to track. There's another aspect of this, which is like accounting. So let's say I had that 700 node cluster, and then I work at a, man, I don't think my voice cracked like that in a while. But anyways, so I work at a college, let's say, and I've got 4,000 researchers. And I don't want to charge the researchers directly, but I want to keep track of, like, the math department's been sending big jobs in, and they've been going all the way up to their allocation, or they've been bursting above it, and maybe we need to reset their allocation. That kind of stuff is the things that'll really help us to track, like, where the jobs are being used. Because otherwise you go, well, man, that's just a lot of data coming in. You got 4,000 people just submitting jobs, and tracking that's going to be a nightmare. Well, yeah, it would be a nightmare. So we have tools that'll help us do it, and that's what the Slurm. So all of these that are worth their salt in any way will have some kind of tracking, right? Hayes said, I would like to use a pile of sticks for database to keep provided dry. That's funny. Yeah, actually, a pile of sticks could be used as a database. I mean, shoot, some people use flat files as a database. Some tools, like XCAT, still uses flat file CSV format for a database. There's all kinds of stuff like that. Hey, Quartz, how's it going? Rare voice crack unlocked. Rare voice crack unlocked. That's pretty funny. I don't think my my voice hasn't done that in a while, like since probably like I was 12 or something. No, maybe a little longer than that, but that's funny. You ever see? There's a kid on The Simpsons who I think the old Simpsons, like in the 80s. I don't know if they still have this kid, but he worked at the fast food restaurant. His voice is always cracking. The kid can't keep his voice. He's always. It's funny. Anyways, yeah. So there's all these. We don't have to go through all of them, but I would tell you Slurm is the one that I've been deploying the most recently. I do work with PBS Pro though, so let's go look for PBS Pro. I don't even know who owns PBS Pro. It looks like there's an open source project for it as well. Oh, well, accept cookies, sure. So there's an open PBS. I didn't even know about that. Yeah, they actually, this is good, but scheduling is hard. That's true. Scheduling is one of those things, kind of like buffering or caching. You know, they say caching is one of the hardest problems in computer science, because how long do you keep a cache? You know, how much do you store in memory versus, there's all kinds of caching theory. But scheduling is similar, because scheduling is kind of a type of cache, but it's how do we, it's almost like if you wanted to shift, you had a bunch of rocks or something, you wanted to kind of shift and get them in. Do you have a bunch of little jobs run on nodes and then leave the big jobs up, or are the big jobs more important? Do they need a little separate area where they go over here where they're always prioritized and stuff like that? Scheduling is a difficult thing, which is why we don't try to tackle that ourselves. We use tools and that kind of stuff. How's it going, Sending Grounds? By the way, Sending, I'm not about to jump off right now. When Sending jumped on, he came on yesterday, and I was like, oh, gotta go. So hopefully you don't think it was you, but no, I'm not hopping off right now. We are continuing, for anybody that got here later, we're continuing the talk that I was doing yesterday, which is an actual job from my company, Redline. And it's this is like a high-performance compute engineer job. And like the required skills we did all yesterday. And then today we started into, where is it? The preferred skills, not necessarily required, but things they'd like. And we were talking about OpenPBS. So OpenPBS is something you could practice. So let's say practice with the free version. Oops, free version. Oh, we talked about this. Right, so we talked about that in the first part, but PBS Pro, and these are scheduling tools. How do we schedule work into the supercomputer? So if we go back here, hold on, let's get out of all these, and let's go to NIST 800-223, which is the supercomputing one, right? This is the one I pulled this up the other day, and some of you might go, well, Scott, you know, you're always referencing this. This is when I'll be in sometimes consulting with new clients or customers that have already chosen to use us, like chosen to use Redline, and they'll be like, okay, this is, I'm not like a sales engineer. I'm just always there. If they have me in there as a consultant, me or one of these other guys in my company, Kyle, we're the two that are often called in for this kind of stuff, where it's like, all right, guys, you know, a company will come to us and they'll get a reference from like Dell or one of these other big companies that work with us. And my company specializes in weather high performance compute as well, not just high performance compute, but weather systems. And where I'm going with this is we'll always pull this up and be like, all right, well, where are your pain points? And people will tell us. And guys, the pain points for a lot of systems work are man, they're universally like, there's like I could like go to one of these meetings and I could have it written out beforehand. I know what 80% of the things they're going to say are. One, there's very poor documentation. That's always true. We have a pain point with security, like keeping our security up to the standard that we need to, or we don't even have policies or anything like that. And I've been like telling guys, like in my company especially, I'm like, guys, this is slam dunk. We just redeploy. You basically have a template for everything and say, hey, these are the things we need to do. And you're, I hate to say it like this, but it's almost like you're showing a baby how to like wipe his mouth and like, you know, it's like potty training a kid. You're like, okay, you had an accident, but here's how you don't have an accident in the future, right? And I know some of you guys have kids. I know for sure one person in chat right here has kids. Yeah, so this is what we look at here. But where I was going with that, by the way, is your schedulers are running over here in some kind of scheduler type set of servers. For us, it's almost always like your Slurm servers. And then, but the login nodes, when your users connect, this is where they're submitting jobs from. Users don't go crawl around out here. Users can't get out here in your cluster. They should not. This is like, for lack of better terms, this is like where the artillery's landing. This is where big stuff's happening, and you don't want things slowing down these nodes. You don't want a user out here setting cron jobs. You don't want a user out here running a while loop on stuff and maybe like, oh, I'm gonna do a stress test on one of these compute nodes. You can throw all kinds of crap off in a cluster if you allow that to happen. So almost universally we don't do that. Yeah, sending around, sometimes dealing with a kid is easier. Yeah, you can teach a kid right from wrong. You can't teach a user. We used to joke around about if you made something like idiot proof, they'd make a better idiot. But with users, I mean, you could fix a problem for a user, and then another user will drop in that place that's just like a blank slate that doesn't know what it's just. And I'm not trying to say anything bad about users. I'm just saying you have to protect users from themselves. So like, oh, this is another one that's huge. This is all the time. They'll be like, we have so much problems with like the users coming in. They go to the login node and then they start pulling out all their data. And you're like, yeah, but that's what your data transfer nodes are for. Yeah, but sometimes that's user training. In fact, I got to give user training. I'm updating all the user training on one of the projects I'm on. You guys know I talk for a living, which is funny because I hate it. Like I don't hate talking to people. What I'm saying is like, if you let me, I would just sit at the command line all day. That's all I want to do. But they make me talk to people, so I do it. It's actually funny. I was talking about this yesterday. I'm not, like, people would think I'm an extrovert. I am not. I will stay at home and I will just sit here and hang out with my computer. And then I just let you guys join me hanging out at my computer for sure. Yeah. So, and also loading data. This is, oh my gosh. Can I tell you guys, we've had jobs and Look, users, how to put this? I have dealt with some of the smartest people. Like I've worked with bioinformatics, PhDs. These guys can like probably read off the Gattaca of your, you guys know. Anyways, Gattaca is the GATC, right? For your string of. These guys are brilliant, but they just don't understand how like the underlying compute works. So I've actually seen this, and some of you are going to be like, Scott, there's no way you've seen this. I have seen this. I've seen people kick off jobs. And then you can go to Slurm and you can look at the job. You can see how it was submitted. You go look through it. Then it kicks off their script or their code or whatever from, some place that is basically on the back-end storage. You always put their home directories and all their work directories out on the storage. But this is such a fast network typically on the back end that it's like it's sitting at each node. And they'll kick stuff off. And the first thing they'll do, guys, you're going to think I'm lying. You're going to think I'm making this up. The first thing they'll do is like kick off a wget and like pull down like some some data set that they have up in like GitHub or something. And you're like, really? I've seen jobs that have been running in Slurm for 10 days and they haven't done all their wgets yet. They haven't finished. So there's a job, like typically we'll have like a wall clock limit of like 10 days or different sizes on different clusters and different partitions and stuff. But let's say the average user, we don't give them more than like 7 or 10 days. I've seen jobs that have been sitting there. They have 256 nodes out of like a 700 node cluster completely allocated to them. And all they've been doing is like a wget on one of the nodes for like 7 days. And you say, but wait, does that lock? Yeah, it locks the resource in that cluster. That's configurable. But for the most part, if you want to have like it's kind of like if we had a drag strip, right? And the drag strip crossed over to get to the ending point from like 4 different launching pads. And you say, Scott, it's actually perfectly safe for us to launch all the cars at the same time. The chances of them crashing are like only 2%. And I go, well, I'm not fucking racing on that track, right? Well, it's the same thing with compute. We have to allocate because we have to give people like a straight shot. And you say, well, okay, in research clusters, doesn't matter nearly as much. But like I do a lot of production workloads with like weather. And these things have to run. So they get their allocation. And if people do inefficient things in their code, we have a couple guys on our team that all they do is specialize in going and finding what inefficiencies are happening in code behind the scheduler. Because again, my side of the things is to build the scheduler and have all of these nodes working so that when they run, we were just looking at that little Grafana graph, when they run, everything's being used or whatever, right? So anyways, I don't know, something to think about. And this is this idea, what we're doing here, I'm putting this together into like an HPC course. We're going to do one of those with Prolog. The only thing I tell you guys, the only thing I can't do, there's 2 things really. I can't do all the back-end hardware stuff because we're not going to be able to do that. You have to spend probably a significant amount of money for that. Or the other thing I can't do is give you this really at scale. I can't give you like full-sized HPC systems to work in. Maybe I can work with my company. I'll talk to my boss, Don, who kind of runs everything. He runs all of our labs and stuff like that. But anyway, so I'm an extroverte guy. Oh, Hayes, we had, me and the wife had Pollo Loco tonight. I don't know if you guys have ever had Pollo Loco. That's pretty good. They have a really good, their chicken taco al carbone, really good, low carb. Not that I'm super worried about that, but it's just chicken, cilantro. I can do without the cilantro. Onions, and then it's like a little tortilla. So I like those. Pretty good. I don't even know what I'm talking about. So we talked about the cluster management tools earlier, but talked about where you can go get some skills on that. This one is big. This is one of the ones that I think my company kind of picked me for. I do specialize in Linux. I've been doing Linux for 20-something years. But I also have a big background in networking. So, I can still program network devices and that kind of stuff. So there's this. The ways that, so we talked about this, getting these skills. Let's go look at those real quick because cluster administration was here. We talked about cluster administration was here. These are the tools for that. Things that I think are kind of important for cluster management. And then we were talking about networking because we wanted a strong knowledge of TCP/IP networking. I have a primer on that for my Linux guys, but for most people that want to dig in a little more, there's a really good IBM Red book. This hasn't been updated since 2006, but it's still really good for just understanding the basics of what's going on. Like maybe you're used to coming into a Linux box here. Let's clear this up. And you're used to doing stuff like IP, IP adder, and you see some info, and you're like, okay, there's some info there. And then maybe you've done like IPR, and you've seen routes and stuff, but maybe you don't know like what that means, like what it means to how these decisions are made within a system based on like the subnets. You're like, oh, I've seen subnets, and I know that it's a /24 on this network, so I put that in. And I know that like /24 is 255, 255, 255.0. Maybe I know those things, but I don't really know how the decision's made right here between if I, host, if I go, I don't have host on there. I thought I had all these on here. Let's just get this on there real quick. So I'll show you guys real quick what I mean. So IP-BR ADDR, it'll show me the brief. Some people like there's like a -C you can do in here. Maybe it's lowercase c. I don't use this one much, but I just like the -BR typically. I don't know, some guys use the C. And then I do an IPR, and then I do like a host for Google. And I get some address that would be mapped in some way for my system. And I say, okay, well, how is my system going to reach that? And we can come down here inside the routing table. And if we understand how subnets work and what the process of ANDing bits are. Anybody here know what ANDing is? ANDing is a mathematical term where we test if bits are the same. Now, super simple. We don't have to pull up one of my I have like diagrams to show you guys how it works, but we don't have to draw that up. We can just say, if this is a /24, then it means you match the first 24 bits, which are right here. Now I'm going to say something silly. Does 142, 251, 152 at the first 24 significant bits match 192, 168, 11? No. So this is not going to be the route that is picked on my system to get to this host. How about this one? 192, 168, 200. Well, I know it's silly, but they don't match at the first 24 bits. So what does my system do? Well, if those were the only two I had, my system wouldn't get there. I wouldn't be able to get out to that anymore. In fact, when I first built these labs, I didn't have a default route. I didn't want people to be able to get back out of the labs. But I backed off of that because I'm like, well, if people are doing ratchet shit in the labs, we'll just block them. But really, I want you to be able to go out and pull things. Like I just pulled that stuff down from the repository. So I wanted people to be able to do that. But since this doesn't match at the first 24 bits, this rule or this rule, it has to go out the default. And you might say, well, that's still just ETH0. Well, it's going to be ETH0 anyway. But this is the rule that it went out with. So, again, like people, that right there may seem, you might be like, Scott, that's super simple. Yeah, but that's, everything I do is simple. Let me just say that. As an engineer, I don't do any complex things. I just do simple things well. That right there may have saved you, you have all kinds of people trying to figure out why something's not working, and then you just understand how the routes are, and you're like, well, of course we don't even have a route to that network. And they're like, oh, shoot, man, this guy, right? He got it. He figured it out. And you'll get more and more, especially as you get Kubernetes involved, and then you start figuring out how things are getting over there. All right, anyway, so where are we at? We were looking at those things. I wanted you guys to see those. And then applications. So this is your documentation, right? Is super important, right? Learn Markdown of some type, whatever type you're using. And I kind of mentioned this up here. This is we had the strong organizational skills and strong verbal written communication skills. I think you need to understand, if you don't take good notes, right? Excuse me. I think you have to build that skill. And I have people all the time tell me, oh, college is just a piece of paper. And I'm like, but if you went to college for 4 years and you weren't good at taking notes before, and when you were done, you were really good at taking notes, I really think that was worth it for you. But I have 3 levels of taking notes. I've talked about this often. Some of you guys have seen me do it. You're actually watching me do it right now. My first level is I log it in the terminal, what I was doing, screen or tmux always running in some. You don't always have screen anymore in government projects because screen is not supported. And if you don't have a support, you can't use the software anymore. So almost universally, it's TMUX nowadays, which just means you have to do what, Control B instead of Control A. Everything else is pretty much the same. But when you start a session, you can log everything, and I highly advise doing that because even a scroll of like 10,000 is probably the most that you're going to get on a terminal window. So you should throw it to a log so you can grep it out later. Super easy to do, super convenient, whatever. That's my rawest form of notes when I work professionally. Then I pull everything out into something like Notepad++. No one ever sees these professionally. Like what you guys are seeing here, this is my step 2 of notes. I would never show this to anybody professionally as I was putting this together. And then my third level is I clean up and redline, so I'll test through the procedure like clean, make sure that everything deploys like I think, make sure my Ansible playbook works in the environments that I expect it to, with no other tweaking than me just pushing one button. And then I clean that up and I redline it. I make sure all my paths are right, and then that's the only thing anybody ever sees. I tell you guys all the time, and you guys might think I'm kidding, but probably some of you watching me probably are like, "Fuck, I get this." If you watched me work on the average day, you would think I was a madman. And you would be like, I don't know how this guy gets anything done. I don't know how I get anything done either, guys. But then you would be like, but at the end of it, he had these notes, and they were pretty good, and he could deploy his work artifacts because he understood as an engineer, we're driving towards checking boxes, and I have it right here. Checking boxes, this is the difference, right? We build new systems, document how we got there. We build work artifacts so that things can be redone. And we check boxes, right? Follow requirements. Again, a lot of times as engineers, the requirements are already set before we get there. But when I was talking about this with like customers, sometimes I'm there guiding what we're going to do. Because we'll come in, and customers will show us something, and we'll kind of show them how it maps to this. And then we'll say, okay, your pain points are your resource manager and your provisioning server don't do a very good job. Or you're having a very hard time making sure that your images are all the same. Okay. I can help. I can build that. I can do that for you. You need me to go go get in your environment and build out some images that have certain versions of whatever code and certain versions of whatever, and then we can test them. Yeah, we can do that. That's a 20 or 30 hour engagement, whatever that is for me to do something like that for people. And these are the kind of things that we do. And then while I'm doing that, I'm building notes like this all the time, and nobody ever sees these notes. They're just when it's done, it's like a nice work product coming out of like Confluence or something. Because Confluence, you can, or Google Docs are the same, where you can just export it as a PDF and just give it to somebody. And it's all done. It's all nice. I also sometimes have to build training for people, and then training is like that same cleanliness level, where you get to hear, but then you have to make sure that it has a flow. There's like 4 C's of technical writing. I should probably note that. Adheres to the 4 C's of technical writing. What are the 4 C's? Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge? Who knows what that's from? That's like a 20-year-old reference now. I don't even know if anybody knows. I guess the memes for that still fly around. You got to be correct. You got to be concise. You've got to be clear. And you've got to be coherent. Correct is accuracy. Concise is brevity. You're like, Scott, you're just making more words up. I had a really bad thesaurus once. Not only was it terrible, it was also terrible. Clear is maybe to the point. Not beating around the bush, and coherent is flowed from logical topic to topic. This is one of the ones that I think people struggle with the most. Do not let your readers wander. Do not let them wander from point to point. You got to walk them through from start to finish where you're going. That's the 4 C's of technical writing, if you've never heard that before. I learned that in college, so that's one of the things I learned in college that's useful. Anyways, I'll put all these notes up in Discord here in a little bit too. They'll probably getting off here in a little bit. Hang out for a little bit longer. I do think you should learn Markdown as a thing. So anyways, we were looking at a job, right? People are always asking about getting into these fields. This was not an entry-level job, guys. This was definitely like, they wanted you to have 5 or more years of Linux systems admin. They wanted you to have some TCP IP networking. So this was probably much more of like a mid. This is one of the things, Redline kind of is mostly populated with senior and principal type. But I'm not saying you couldn't get them. We have a couple of junior guys running around. We're always training them and that kind of stuff. So I missed that. Oh, Serban TTV. Hopefully this stuff's useful to you. We are just going through jobs and looking at stuff in the environment. So then, a lot of this stuff, we were talking about how to get the skills. Let me go. I'll just drop this all in the Discord. I'll just go update my meeting notes here. Let me just update this. Let's just go right here. I think because I did update that. Boom. What? My message is too long. I think I can just attach this text then. We'll just escape. And we'll just say updated. Where's that at? File. Save as. Where are we gonna put that? I go put it in. Let's put it in downloads or something. HPC job notes. How's that? HPC job notes. Right, updated from yesterday. Boom. Go grab it. Upload a file. I just put it right here. There we go. And I think, yeah, you can just still look at it in there. But then I think you have to download. It doesn't matter. It's just a text file. All right. So we did all that. That's good. The other thing we can do. So I have this talk that I sometimes do, excelling in the engineering field after college. But then for you guys, if I'm hanging out and talking with you guys, I have this little disclaimer here for anyone. I think that for people that want to you say, hey, Scott, that was some good ideas, but maybe I'm not going to get into that field right away. I don't really want to do high performance compute. I just want to get into Linux. This is my way of kind of walking through this. Some of you guys have seen this before, but I know I haven't done it in the last 2 months, so this will be kind of new for some people. But if you guys want to watch this and hang out a little bit, we'll talk through this stuff. If you guys have questions about any of this stuff, let me know. But this is my excelling in the engineering field. I originally put this presentation together for the Prolog group. I've done it for my college students, so that's why I have it after college. But for you guys, and when I kind of present it with you guys, I just have it for anyone. A lot of the references that I have in here are also up in our Discord. They're free in like the presentations channel. So this talk is up here. Stuff's all up here. These are all the talks that we've done. And people will just post stuff in here. Excelling in the engineering field. So this is a little bit older version of it, but this is the talk if anybody needs it. Also, some of the other things I'm going to reference are also up in there as well. So, all right. So this is a quote from a guy named William Butler Yeats, and I think this is one of the most accurate things that I've probably seen as far as tech work goes. When I first started in tech, I realized very quickly, hey, this stuff moves fast, and this was in the early 2000s. And you're always going to be in a classroom. You're always going to be learning something. So it's not just like, hey, and I remember when I was in school, when I was in high school, I was like, oh, I just can't wait to go to college and then never have to learn anything ever again, right? But then you get in the field and you're like, no, once I get to that level, I have to stay at that level. Bachelor's degree, I have to know all that stuff. I have college students sometimes that are like, I hate this command line stuff. When do I ever get to not do it? And I'm like, this is the job, guys. This is the job for networking engineers. This is the job for cloud stuff. Like, you're going to be in command line all the time. I mean, unless you just want to be like I don't know, like working in a NOC or something. Nothing wrong with working in a NOC. That's a great place to start. That's just not where a lot of you want to live your whole life. So anyways, my point is you have to kind of light a fire, find stuff that's interesting to you. We're going to talk about that. And keep yourself kind of stoked up near a fire. If you guys have ever, kept a fire going at night, you put all the coals together. You can't let the coals go further out, or they won't be it won't be as hot. So all right. So anyways, here's my quote to get you to the point. Right, we're engineers. We deal in truth. our utility is a marketing function or a marketing discussion where we add value to places. This is where our value as engineers comes from, is how we can get to the right answer. We deal in truth, right? Like if you're an engineer, and I would highly recommend you not test what I'm about to say, but if you wanted to, you could. Just start, when people send you emails, give them bad information and constantly give bad information. And you would find very quickly people are going to stop talking to you. They're going to stop trusting you. As an engineer, I deal in truth. I look for ones and zeros. I look for truth, false settings. Like everything I do is dealing in truth, right? So that's kind of an important distinction for what we do as engineers. Are things set the way I expect them to? I set a value, I go validate it at the command line, because again, there's only two things you do at a command line. You set a value and you check a value, right? Kick off a script, make sure it ran correctly. But this is the job, right? We're sometimes called on to answer the best technology for some random problem. Sometimes we're called on to fix a problem or troubleshoot. So those are the two major tasks we're going to do. We're going to build new things and we're going to fix old things. That's what engineers do. In any case, knowledge and finding solutions are what we bring to the table. So that's what we're there for. All right. And then to that point, and if we understand that that's how we deal in truth, and these are the two tasks we're often going to be called to do, then our job right now, especially if we want to get into this field, is to understand how to do that going forward, right? Like if I just started you with this, you'd be like, thanks, asshole. You didn't give me anything there. But what I think is, and this is my high level way of how I think, you know, as I kind of push, because I tell my college students this all the time, once you're done with college, nobody's going to keep doing this for you. You have to keep yourself sharp. So how do you do that, right? So here's our overview. I think you should learn how you learn. Everybody learns somewhat differently, but you have more similarities in how you learn than differences. And a lot of people don't like to hear that. They're like, I'm a autodidactic, whatever, this and this. And you're like, oh my God, dude, there's so many ways that you can learn things, but it starts at the bottom. We've got a model that we use for Bloom's taxonomy, very common for how we educate people and how, again, how you should learn to learn. There you go. Then we'll talk about certifications. Even if you don't want to go pay for certifications, encompass what we call a body of knowledge. So the body of knowledge around something. Certifications are very valuable. I think you should build out a home lab, have professional and personal projects that are interesting to you. We have a home labbing section of the Discord where people will talk about stuff in there. But I think that you should build out stuff that's relevant to showing an employer that you know how to build things, like we were just talking about, and fix things. Those are the two things that we do, right? I think you should build out a book collection. You can get those a bunch of different ways. We'll talk about that. And then maybe one of the most important things that I can tell you to do is go sit with the engineers. Get with people that are interested in the same things as you, right? If you said, hey, Scott, I love coding Java. Java's my bag. I'd be like, well, we're probably not the best place for you. Not that you can't hang out with us, but you want to go find people that are doing this stuff, right? Find people that are doing that. Podcasts, I would say podcasts are fine. Blogs, people write about this stuff. There's a lot of good AWS and Azure blogs about the different stuff that's out there. And then just the open source community. Find a project you can get involved with, right? All right. And then again, Slack or Discord servers on the topic of technology. One thing I always caution people here, and it'll come up when we get to that slide, avoid infotainment. If you're trying to learn and better yourself, you can listen to some people for hours and they're entertaining, but they're infotainment, right? They're talking about the news and the politics and this, and maybe they're even talking about it around tech, but you're not really learning anything. And I would tell you, not that those people are bad. It's just if that's your goal, is to get into this field, maybe temper that back and go, okay, I want to hear them for some of the newer technologies, but I'm also going to spend some time studying, or I'm going to deal with some of these other people. And then I tell you, if you're the top person and there's nobody else out there to learn from, start mentoring others at your company. Document stuff, write procedures and policies and do that kind of stuff. So here's my overview. These are the things I think you should do. So here's the learning how you learn. You can't sit with us. That's funny. So my wife uses an app called Fetch. If you guys have ever heard. So this app, what it does is you just take like pictures of receipts and stuff, and I'm always keeping receipts from things and giving it to my wife, and then she'll be like, oh yeah, I'll put this in my Fetch app, and I'll be like, quit trying to make Fetch happen, which I think is a quote from Mean Girls. the girl like, that's so fetch, and they're like, stop trying to make fetch happen. So anyways, that's funny when you said you can't sit with us. I think I've seen that movie one time, maybe ever, and I think it was right when it first came out or something. I might have went and saw it on a date or something. But learning how you learn. Okay, yeah. Look, guys, I'm gonna concede up front. Everybody learns somewhat differently. True. The things don't stick in my brain the same as they do in yours. Sure. But I'm going to tell you this. You probably learn more like other people than you think, and I'll prove that to you somewhat. One, you should figure out a schedule that works best for you. Do you need a Pomodoro timer to keep you on task? When you're studying, do you often have your phone in your hand? That may be one of the first things you need to do from a discipline standpoint, is say, you know, while I'm studying, I put my phone away. I put it right here on the little charger. I don't touch it during the 45 minutes of my Pomodoro timer. The other 15 minutes, I can play games on my phone. I can play games on my computer, but I can't be doing that all day, right? Or Netflix or whatever. I can watch it for 15 minutes, pause it, go back to whatever I'm studying. But do you need something that's going to keep you on task? When I do, I have a little trick, and this is just because I'm insane and always jumping around. When I'm working on my dissertation stuff, I have it on this left screen over here that I have big screens in front of me. You can go see them in the Discord if you want. My screen over here, and then down on my phone, I have a timer that I just keep restarting for 30 minutes. So if I'm doing it and then I go off and I'm doing something else, my timer is like a little bell. It just dings on me and tells me, get back to work. And I turn back, I do another 10, 15 minutes. That's a form of a Pomodoro timer. That's not a great use of it, but I mean, if I know I'm going to be sitting here all day working, I just sometimes sit around and go, I can't do 16 hours of straight work like on this dissertation, but I can do, 10, 15 minutes, go off and do other stuff. It alerts me to get back, I get back on task or whatever. And actually, I say that I need to start working on that. Can you sit and watch videos for hours? I used to study a lot when I was doing all my AWS certs. I was watching a lot of reInvent videos, and somebody in the Discord one day, I couldn't even tell you who it was now, it was 4 years ago, 5 years ago. He said, oh yeah, I watch everything on 2x. And I go, I never once in my life, guys, thought to watch anything faster than 1. Never thought about it. So then I found out I can't watch things on 2x. I can watch things at for learning at 1.75. Do you know how much more you get in when you do that? It's a lot, especially when you're looking at graphs and listening to people talk about some of the stuff. You can get a lot of studying in. Now, reInvent videos from AWS are always the topics that show up on the Solutions Architect Pro and those kind of things. So I would always do those videos after I had watched. I would go through all the topics. I would get a Udemy course from Stefan Merrick or something. I would go through that, and then I would watch a lot of reInvent videos the 2 days before, because those were going to be all of the things that were common. The things that they're talking about reInvent are the things that are on the cert. And you might not believe that, but I'm telling you, if you go take a lot of AWS certs, one of our guys just recertified his Solutions Architect Pro. Yeah, it's very similar to that. Jones, my favorite is silence randomly interrupted by the steel pipes. That's funny. Yeah, Zorgal, 1.5. But you got to know, this is one of the things, this is all just me telling you, know what your thing is. 1.5, perfect. I've tried to listen 2 and above, can't do it. I can't. People start to sound like Alvin and the Chipmunks. If you guys remember Alvin and the Chipmunks, they're very popular in the 80s. I think they made a comeback in 2000s. This is a big one. You don't find time, you make time. I don't work out well in the afternoon. I get up at 4:20 in the morning. I go to my gym at 5 a.m. My Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym. I drive down the street. Takes about 10 minutes to get over there. But I have to do it every morning. I don't. You don't find time, you make it. So if you tell me, hey, Scott, I'm really tired at the end of the day, I say, I'm sorry, you have to, at the end of the day, set your bedtime a little earlier. You got to get up and study before. Because, I have college students that are trying to get into this field. Same thing with a lot of you guys. Maybe you have to set your, you go to bed at 10 to get up to break rocks all day. And I say, I'm sorry, you got to get up half an hour earlier and do your studying first. And that's important. Also, to that point, a little daily is better than cramming once a week. So when I have you guys do the discussion posts in the course, I don't do that so I can sit around and be like, look at these guys and sip on my drink or whatever. That's not why I do that. I do that because if you're thinking about stuff throughout the week, that's better than cramming just on a Sunday night before a college class is done. Trust me, guys. You don't even have to trust me. You can just go do it yourself. Go to the gym once a week and see if that's as good as going to the gym 7 days a week or 5 days a week. It's not. Even if you say, but I was only going to do 45 minutes a day, so what if on Sunday I just do 6 hours? And I'm like, go do it. You're going to find out very quickly that's not the best way to do this. Like, you kind of keep the fire hot. You keep it all stoked up, right? So anyways, there's that. Quartz one says, it's more helpful to watch a full section than go back and take notes, or take notes during the watch through. So Quartz, I'm going to be honest here. I don't do a good job at taking notes when I watch stuff. However, for me, what I do look for, Quartz, is if I'm watching something on that faster mode like that, and I've got my notepad up, because I do typically have this up somewhere, I will just grab keywords while it's playing. So, I'm listening to something, they're like, oh yeah, and this is where you go do, this is where you dig in, maybe you're doing your developer associate study, and they're like, and this is where we talk about like cold starting Lambda. And you're like, I don't even know what a cold start for Lambda is. What does it mean to be a warm, an already running instance of Lambda versus this? What's the cold start time? What's the average? And then you can go study that stuff later. So I just look, Quartz, when I'm listening to stuff kind of fast like that, typically, again, it's pretty far along in my studying. I've mostly hit everything by that point. I don't do a lot of note taking at that point. However, if I do hear something, I will write it down. Sometimes, guys, I use my physical notebook and I'll just write things down quickly, and then I'll go back when I have like a slower moment to do that. So I think that's a good value. Yeah, I listen to stuff at like 1.75. That's as fast as I can go. I know people that read it or that do it at 3, and I'm like, man, they sound too much like the chipmunks. I can't do it. But learning how you learn, tremendously important. Figure out what you're interested in. I'm going to tell you right now, if you like take a self-assessment and find out what you're interested in, it's going to be a lot more tenable. It's going to be a lot easier for you to choke it down, right? When you're doing that, when you're taking that medicine every morning and studying, if you hate networking and you're trying to study for a CCNA, that's real hard to do. But if you're like, oh, I really like the systems engineering stuff, I want to go do Linux, well, then you're like the rest of us, right? We like Linux. I say work on projects that allow you to do what are interested. So do things that are interesting to you. We have guys that do Linux, but they're sound engineers, and we have guys that do Linux, but they're digital analysts. I have a fair amount of friends that do data analytics, and they do it on Linux servers, but they don't care about the underlying Linux besides just being able to, move around and do their projects and their little environments and stuff. But they're more about data analytics, data pipelining, ETL type jobs, that kind of stuff, all those keywords and stuff. But they don't really care about the Linux, right? And some people don't, right? I tell people all the time, the reason they have people like us around, people that specialize in Linux and building systems, is because they don't necessarily want to do all that. So anyway, so learn how you learn. This is all important stuff. By the way, guys, this is in the Discord, and I'm gonna pull up this other presentation here, because I think you should take a self-assessment if you haven't. You don't have to do a formal self-assessment. This is our self-assessment that we use in the home lab here, or in the Prolog group. This is free up in the Discord as well. I try to keep all this stuff as free as possible for you guys. But this is a self-assessment matrix, right? What are we doing here? Purpose, self-assessment to determine skills and skill gaps for you, right? For whatever you're doing. There's the Discord if anybody needs it on the Twitch side. On the YouTube side, it's down in the description. So the purpose is self-assessment to determine your skills and your skill gaps. So we'll look at that. And then it also aligns skills and interests within the assessed individual. So I want you to, in scope, is your current technical skills and technical interests, and then questions around current business skills. I just added that because some people don't want to be technical their whole career. They want to go get into management. Look, guys, I'm going to tell you, I've stayed out of management my whole career, and they've been pushing me towards management for like my whole career. But look, hey, if that's how you feed your family, I'm not going to be like, oh, you should be a Linux guy your whole career. Not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody wants to get a bunch of gray hair from freaking doing Linux all day, right? And that kind of stuff. Some people want to go manage people. I have no business, and I have no desire wiping people's noses and making sure that they feel good about themselves. So I don't want to be in management. I do enough of that with my college students, right? So out of scope, we don't care about team needs, so I'm not worried about like you fitting into a team here. I'm not worried about external assessments and like what the industry is looking at. Not in this. That's something you should kind of do. That's not going to be taken into consideration. Methodology, we're going to normalize it to an objective approach, right? So subjective would be like, well, I feel like I'm pretty good at Linux and I kind of like Linux, so I want to do some Linux. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm going to do a lot of Linux. That's anybody here? So there's a movie Bedazzled, where Brendan Fraser gets into Elizabeth Hurley, who was stunning at the time, is the devil, and she sells him like these 8 or 9 wishes or something. It's pretty funny. Anyways, methodology is you're not just like, that's what it is. It's when he's the big basketball player. And he's like, well, you want to do good, and you hope you do good, and I think we did pretty good. And he's just an idiot though, and that's like how he talks. That's subjective. I think I did good. I feel like I did good. Objectively, I turn it into numerical values that I can then use to decide things, right? So that's our methodology. And then our control is we ask all the questions of all this. This was when we were assessing. I originally wrote this self-assessment for a college I was working for at the time. Well, I was working with Redline, but I was embedded at a college. And this was a methodology for like self-assessment for people to kind of see what they wanted to do, right? Because we wanted to give people the ability to cross-train some other stuff, so I got asked to put this together. So this is a very similar model to something I did for one of our customers. So here's your technical self-assessment. You should come in and you should assess where you're at on Linux. And I always give this caveat before we start. You don't have to tell me these, right? And we do this in the Linux admin course. If you come down the line and go, I'm 10 all the way down, I can't help you. You can't help you. You're already the best. But if you're honest with yourself and you say, well, I like Linux, but I don't do Linux yet, so maybe I say I'm a 5, because I've talked with Linux people and I feel like I'm pretty good at Linux, and I've been online and I've solved most of the things, and I'm like a 5. Okay. And then you just go down the line where you think you fall. And this is your technical skill. This is your self-assessment of your skill. Then you come here to your interests, and you find that you're like a 5. You're a 5 on your technical skill for Linux, but your interest in Linux is like a 10, so you want to get better at that. But then you're like me, and I'm like probably like a 3 on database. I can do like SQL queries. I can do all this little stuff. But hold on. But then when we come to my interests of database, my interest for database is 1. I do not want to do database work. Hey, Anonymous, thanks for the gifted sub. Hopefully this stuff is useful to you guys. Also, that's actually really funny that you gave that to Linux sucks. That's pretty funny. But anyway, so this is how you're going to find your gaps, where you want to get better. If you say right here in your assessment of skill that Kubernetes, you're like a 1 on Kubernetes, but you've heard that Kubernetes is a pretty lucrative and kind of fast-paced field, and Kubernetes is where you'll get into like site reliability engineering and DevOps type roles. So you're maybe a 1 on Kubernetes, but you want to be like up around 8 or 9 on Kubernetes. That's going to give you some gaps. That's going to tell you where to go focus your time. There's a quote when the Count Mondego is about to shoot the Count of Monte Cristo, Edmond Dantes, right? And he's got the pistol pointed right at him. And Edmond Dantes says, "You only have 1 shot with that pistol, and you're going to need more than that to stop me." And Count Mondego says, "Well, then I shall put it where it'll do the most damage." And he turns the pistol and shoots Mercedes, right? If you guys have ever seen that, fantastic movie, fantastic book, the Count of Monte Cristo. So he turns the gun. And he's like, I'm going to put the bullet where it does the most damage. Where I'm going with that is you only have so much time to study. Let's say you get a good study routine. You only have 6 hours a week to study around a 40-hour work week and all this other stuff. So you need to figure out where you want to put that time. Do I want to study Linux? Do I want to study Kubernetes? If I only have time for one, I have to make a decision. It's in economics, it's an opportunity cost, right? But just us normal people that are not economics. I got a buddy that's just got his PhD about a month ago in economics, and he's always talking about your opportunity cost of things and focusing on the things that need to be done and that kind of stuff. Well, this is the same idea. You only have so much time. So you want to kind of get through what you want to get better at, and then now you can start to focus on that. All right. Business stuff. Do you have any desire to, do you have any skill in these things? Do you have any desire to do these things? I just threw that in there because I thought that would be fun. Some people don't want anything to do with business side of things. They just want to engineer and build stuff, and that's how a lot of us live, and that's perfectly fine. So, keck. Yeah, that's funny. And then I think you should do a SWOT analysis. This is the same. This is treating yourself like a business, because businesses do SWOT analysis all the time. So internal is your strengths and weaknesses, and then external is your opportunities and threats. And you thinking of yourself as like a business, I mean, whether you're going to consult for people or you're going to directly work for a company, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And then outside of your control, what are the opportunities or threats? So this is where you get into strengths. What are things you do well in? Do you excel? Can you sit and listen all day to things? Are you a really good reader? Do you have focus problems? So you need to constantly go back, like, do you have to have a timer every morning to remind you to go back to a Udemy course? Did you guys know there's like some stats on Udemy where like, I've read it before. It's something like 95% of courses never ever get finished because people just love buying things, but then they never go back and do anything with it. So your strength may be that you're good at finishing things, but you're terrible at starting them. Well, then you need to start prompting yourself in some way to go do that. Maybe your weakness is guys, I'm never going to be a great database guy. I can do some SQL queries and I can like harden a database and stuff like that, but I am not interested. Like I just, like even just sitting here, I have like pit on my stomach. I can feel, I don't want to do database stuff. Now, I'm not trying to shit on people who do database stuff because that's really good work and that's worth a lot of money. Guys, database work, fantastic work if you can do that all day. But that's something I know I don't do well, so I'm not going to focus on it. These are things you have to assess yourself on, right? I'm not trying to sit here. I'm not prescribing anything to you guys here. This is for you to kind of figure out for yourself. I'm not prescribing do this because this will make your life better. I think this will make your life better, but you have to figure these things out for yourself. Nobody can tell you these things about yourself. I mean, well, maybe like if you have a freaking I don't know, like a therapist and they spend like 8 hours a week with you or something. But other than this, you're the only one that knows this stuff about yourself. And again, like even in college, like you know, once you get out of college, nobody's gonna do this for you again. You got to do it for yourself. So this is what I think you should do. Let's talk about the value of joining a table to itself. Yeah, kilobytes, and that's the thing. I'm really good at starting stuff too, and I'm not great at finishing. In fact, I have stuff that I've been looking at for months that I just am like, I'm not going to finish this, but I need to, right? I need to just finish and sit down and do it. Now, the things that are outside of your control for the most part are what courses are out there, what's interesting, what are the market needs. You know, if you're going to go, I remember learning this when I was in high school. I had a really good marketing teacher. It was my best friend Jared's dad was our marketing teacher, and he taught us. He goes, hey, in the 90s, there was this huge influx in colleges, and everybody was getting everybody involved in marine biology. Like all these colleges offered all these courses in marine biology. So all kinds of people were coming out of high school and going into marine biology. They thought that was interesting. And then he told us, he's like, there's about 10 jobs a year in the U.S. for marine biology. It's probably slightly more than that. I think he was being facetious. But the point is, you've got 30,000 people doing it every year to get into the field, and then you've got 10 people that are going to get accepted. Well, that's not a great market thing. Now, can I tell you guys something that this is colloquial? I don't have any data on this. I'm just going to tell you this is, or better term would be anecdotal. I have always seen way more Linux jobs than I know Linux engineers and admins for. So, in my experience, and this is in many years of this field, and even when I've went out for jobs over the years, I run into the same people, right? And the same people are out there. I think that you're never, at least in my 20-something, almost 25 years of doing this, I don't think you're going to ever find the need for like Linux command line people filled. I really don't. There's always people looking for it. Probably because of pretty frequently. What takes most of my time is ASU's bachelor's computer information system analyst as an old full-time work student. Have you year left though? Nice, kilobyte. Yeah. That's actually pretty good. But you're studying though, so that taking a lot of your time is directly studying and making for your future. The topic of this. The topic of this one back here is, excelling in the engineering field after college. That's what this originally was. But anyways, where were we at? We were here learning how you. We're learning how you learn. So real quick, we're going to finish up this self-assessment. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and then this is one that I added because I just think this is a great thing to think about. If you're just like, man, Scott, like all this stuff, all these techniques and stuff, I still don't know what I kind of want to do. This comes from a Japanese philosophy. I really like this. It's called Ikigai, right? And it's like, what do you love? What does the world need? What can you be paid for? And what are you good at? You may love, like the guys in the Discord, they love Linux desktops. And that's awesome, right? I think running Linux on your desktop is probably great. But nobody is going to pay you for that. Or let me back up. Some companies, probably a very, very super small part of companies out there, are going to pay you to do Linux desktop for them. They're probably, most companies are Windows shops or Mac shops or whatever. You're not going to find a lot of that. So you love Linux desktops, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. Does the world need it? Sure. People need better desktop experiences, sure. Are you good at it? Sure. But you might not be able to get paid for it because it's very hard to get into that field. Now, could you maybe move that thing that you love down and say, well, maybe instead of doing desktops, I'll do server work, right? Because servers are where most companies need you. So I can be paid for that. The world definitely needs it. I can be just as good at that as a desktop, but now I'm not focusing on desktop. So I might say, well, maybe you do your desktop stuff on your own time, get good at that stuff on your own time, but you focus on like what you can kind of get paid for. So this is a methodology that I just think is a fun one to look at and say, like, you know, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know where I want to be in my career or the field. But sometimes, I mean, at the end of the day, right, like however you think about it, you got to eat, you got to feed your family. So, you know, a big consideration, maybe a weighted consideration, is down here on what you can be paid for, right? All right, anyway, so that's that. That's up in the Discord if anybody needs it. But now we get to how you learn things. And this one, maybe one of the most important things that I can show you here, is that the way that we teach at the college level is this thing called Bloom's taxonomy. This is a guiding principle of most everything, most college curriculum, most everything is based on this right here. And the idea is, if I was going to start talking to you guys right now about high performance compute, and I said, okay, we've got a bunch of Linux servers, and they are sitting in a network, and the network is air-gapped, and somebody raises their hand, and they go, what's a Linux? I go, okay, well, Linux is this type of server that's an operating system, and somebody goes like this, and they go, what's a server? Do you guys see that that would probably slow us down quite a bit? Or if you were, as we were talking earlier, and talking about watching things on faster speed, and if you're just watching something and somebody's just throwing so many terms at you that you've never even heard before, the chances of that information sticking with you are somewhere between 0 and less than 0. You're not gonna, none of that information is gonna stick. So one of the things about Bloom's taxonomy is you start with kind of recalling basic facts, or what I call like a glossary of keywords. If any of you remember learning in school, you know, the teacher would show you all the animals, and then you would learn what all the animals were by name, and then they'd be like, okay, this animal makes this sound, and then you start to kind of figure out, and then you're like, okay, these animals live in the plains, these animals live in the jungle, and you start to learn more and more things. But at first, before we're even talking about any of that, we got to know what those kind of animals are, right? And it's the same thing. So at first, we kind of have to understand keywords and terms, and this is one of the reasons why later on when I talk about like podcasts and sitting with the engineers, you got to hear the terminology and ways that engineers talk with each other, because there's things that are kind of common ways that things are discussed, where, you know, you're always sitting around with an engineer and everybody's troubleshooting, but one guy's always talking about, that's a red herring, that's a red herring, and you're like, what the fuck's a red herring? I don't even know what that is. Some of you probably know right off, right? But then you go look that up, and you're like, oh, a red herring is a type of logical fallacy where we're following, like we're going down the wrong track. Oh, why didn't he say we're just going down the wrong track? Well, because red herring's a fast way to say it that engineers kind of trigger and go, oh yeah, this is dumb. Or people will be discussing something and somebody will say that's orthogonal to the point, right? And what that just means is it's off to the side. It's not really relevant to what we're discussing, right? And you say, why didn't he just say it's not really relevant to what we're discussing? Well, I don't know. Like, people love being pedantic, but the point is, engineers are going to talk like engineers talk, guys. That's how it is. Sir YAML, that's a great name. Oh, it's just Sir Yam over on YouTube. How's it going? I'm not trying to ignore people. I'm just kind of going through our discussion here. And then once you understand facts and stuff, and by the way, I'm not saying this is the only way to learn. I'm just saying generally, we're not up here producing new stuff within a concept or a field if we don't understand the basics first. It would be like if you come to me and you're like, Scott, I want to put together this Lego Death Star. And I'm like, all right, well, what's the first pieces we have to snap together? And you go, snap? Snap, I don't, what do you mean snap together? And I'm like, oh my God, are we talking about Lego or what? Like, I don't do Lego. I have a lot of people in my family that love Lego, but like, I understand that Lego snap together, right? That's like the first thing about them. Well, this is the idea that things build up like this. I'm not going to dig too much into this, but just know that this is a great way to think about, like, we understand things at the basic building blocks. Then we start to be able to put those ideas and concepts together. Then we can apply them to scenarios, right? We can analyze them and think about them in relationships. Like, so analyzing may be, at first I just understood that there's a thing out there called compute. Compute is, down here. And then I understand that compute in the cloud, maybe in AWS, is like an EC2 instance. And I go, okay, so I have an EC2 instance, and I can maybe deploy that and use that to, run a web server, let people connect as a Bastion host or something, whatever. And then I start to go, okay, well, it was cool to run it like hourly over here, but I also understand there's all these other deployment models. There's spot instances. Maybe I should just run all my servers on spot instances. Well, spot instances can be terminated with a 2-minute warning. So now I got to be able to turn off all my code. No, that doesn't work for me. So I can't use that, but I can start to compare between, and I go, well, I know I'm going to be running this project for the next 5 years. I've got a contract on it. I could buy reserved instances and save myself up to like 70% of my cost by buying all of the cost up front. So now the cloud vendor is going to pass on some of their savings to me, and I can start to analyze. But I have to know those things first before I can make those analyses, right? And then I can evaluate and I can justify in front of other people. And look, people think of this as confrontational. People think of academics as confrontational. It's not always confrontational, but you do have to be able to decide. This is a big part of academics, is when you take a stand or make a statement about something, you have to be able to back it up with your facts. Why you took that statement, what the data are showing you around it. So you have to be able to evaluate. And then typically, like, these are like your master's and then your doctorate level up here. Producing new research. That's what my dissertation is, right? Producing new research around how we do Bastion processes and that kind of stuff for user access. Anyway, so learning how you learn, very important. All right, so another one, this is a competency model. So this is the unconscious competence model, or what people call the conscious competence model. And it talks about how you perform tasks and how well you understand the hands-on. So you start down here. You've never been in a command line before. You don't even know what you don't know, right? I put you at a terminal like this, and you go, and you're like, I don't even know what just happened there, right? That's not a real command. But you don't even know that that's not a real command because you've never been at a terminal, right? So we come down here, and you don't know what you don't know. You're unconsciously incompetent. But then you realize, oh, there's this whole world of command line that I don't know yet, or this whole world of networking that I don't know yet. And you become conscious, aware of your incompetence, your inability to function and do things. So you know that you don't know, and you don't know, and you want to learn. So you start to say, okay, well, I'm going to learn how to do these things. I'm going to put a plan together. I'm going to break this up into pieces. I'm going to go open up a Wireshark and start to dig into what's going on in my system. This is actually from our talk yesterday, right? But you're going to start to touch the pieces of it and learn. And then you become conscious of the certain things you're competent in. You're like, okay, I'm conscious. I've developed a proficiency. I know when I get to a Linux box that I can do these things. I get to a Linux box that I've never been to before. I do an uptime. I do a free-m, and I do a df-h. And now I can look very quickly and see that the server's been up for a day. He's got plenty of free memory for just being a little lab server, and he doesn't have full use of any of his disks right off of any of his mounted file systems. So I feel pretty good about him, right? There's no actual disks on this box. That's why he doesn't have any actual block devices mounted right here. It's all the memory. But my point is, I could very quickly do that, and I'm aware of the things that I kind of know what I'm doing, but I have to kind of actively think about what's going on, right? So this is like being conscious of my competence and the things that I know. And then you move down here to, you're just unconsciously competent. You just can move around. You don't even have to think about it anymore. You're proficient about the knowledge you have to real tasks. So you just do things without even thinking about them. Now, when you look at this, you go, well, obviously I want to be down here, but I'm going to caution you as an engineer, you actually want to stay out of this zone. You want to keep yourself kind of broken up here, where you are always trying to learn more and always getting better at your craft. And you should develop proficiency and be good at things, but you should never rest down here where you're just like, this is an example of this is when you first start driving a car. You like put up the windows and you like turned off the radio and you like weren't smoking a cigarette or anything. I don't smoke, but if you did, you didn't do any of that stuff. You just focused on shifting through your gears and hitting the gas and the brake and the clutch and whatever you were doing when you first learned. But then now when you're over here unconsciously competent, you got your elbow out the window, you're smoking a cigarette, you've got the radio turned up loud, you can't even hear the person talking to you, maybe you even got like a Bluetooth in, you're talking on the phone, and you're shifting without even thinking about it, right? But I tell you, as an engineer, this is a dangerous spot, because if you become unconsciously competent and the technology shifts, the paradigm for your industry shifts, then now you start back on square one. I see this, I've probably seen this in my career more than, gosh, most other things, especially with people that like program and they do one language and they focus on it, and then like the industry shifts away from it, or it doesn't get written much anymore, and like they're like, oh shoot, I have to relearn how to do this other stuff. I tell people to stay back here and kind of stay conscious of your competence. So this is a thing to think about. This is not like a hard fast rule, but this is how you learn. Learning how you learn, very important. All right, so another one is you say I want to get a skill and I want to be able to apply it to real life. This is a competency acquisition path. You start with, maybe you explore, right? You read things, you walk through like a rubric about what you're going to learn, and then you start to think about maybe things that you already know and we're building on prerequisites. Then you build connections with new concepts and existing frameworks of what you already know, right? And we walk through, maybe it's your first time ever dealing with NTP or something. I show you the commands around NTP. I show you that's running on your system. I show you how to check what's going on. And then we start to practice. Maybe you set it up with pointing to a new NTP server or something, and you get new hands-on skills through exercises, and you go and you do these things, and you touch them and you remember them, right? And then when you're done with that, you start to apply that to real life. And I say, okay, now you're sitting in a company, in an environment, and you've got to set this up with their new Cisco equipment that does network time protocol locally. You're not atomically going out to the pools that are out there. You're going local, and then those pools are going to be set up to go out in time. So that's the kind of stuff. Keyboard Bushido said, hey folks, does anybody know where I can find the HET schedule, probably HET schedule for the next Linux class? I don't know when we're going to do the next one. We haven't planned a new one yet. We're in the middle of one now. I haven't actually thought about when we were going to run the next one. Let's look at this real quick. Hold on. I think we can just do cal-y. Yeah. We're going to finish the one that we're in. So this was week... we just did 9 and 10. Oh, I got to add those. That's good catch. I got to add those. We're in 9, 10. So this will be 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So we're going to finish this one in the middle of April, right? The course that we're doing right now. And I probably want to run another security engineering one, because security engineering one is a good one. I'm trying to think if we ever did a second one of those. I think we for sure just ran the one. I don't remember if we ever ran a second one of those. Or if we did, I don't know if anybody finished it. I have to go look at that. But I'd like to do maybe a security engineering one while I'm doing the high performance compute one. So I can't really hard commit to anything until after July, because me and the wife are going to be out of town in July. So maybe I'll commit to doing some more in August timeframe. Oh, by the way, in August on the 8th and the 9th, we're going to be doing the... Wait, for a second. I don't know. I'll post it in the Discord, but we're going to be doing our annual, like our prologue from our... kind of like our annual like celebration, how long we've been running the group. I think we're up to 12 or 13 years of the group now, and we've been on Discord for like 7 years now, I think. Yeah, something like that. I don't know. I gotta go look, but we've been doing this for a while. But me and the wife are going. She's turning 50 this year in November, and she has to hit her 50th state. So she's been doing all 50 states before 50. So we're gonna go do Alaska. We're gonna do an Alaskan cruise in July. And those are very expensive. I don't know if you guys have ever done an Alaskan cruise, man. Well, okay, I think there's probably a cheaper version of it, but we're doing like the bells and whistle one. So like I think we're on like the top deck or something with like a balcony or something. And you say, how expensive is that? It's like $7K for just us, and then we're also doing the grandbaby and the kids. So they're going to be. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. But this is how you learn, right? Learning how you learn, very important. So let's talk about certifications a little bit. This comes from, for anybody that got here late, we are going through kind of my excelling in the engineering field after college, but really for anyone, right? Anyone. If you're not even if you're not going to college, if you just want to excel in the engineering field, these are the things that I think you need to do. So we touched all this stuff. Now we're on certification. And the thing about certifications, even if you're not going to spend your money, guys, the body of knowledge around a certification is very valuable. You say, hey, Scott, I want to work in the networking field. And I say, well, you probably should study for your CCNA. Yeah, but CCNAs are $400 or whatever they are now. I'm not telling you have to take the CCNA. I'm just saying you should study for it. And then if somebody asks you questions like you had taken a CCNA in an interview, you can have it on your resume. I've studied for a CCNA, have not yet taken it, plan to get it after I get a job, something like that. You can put that on a resume, word it a little better. But then when somebody asks you questions and they're like, how does a router determine the path to another network? And you say, well, it looks in its routing table. It does and if I wanted to see that, I would do show IP route, right? And I would see the routing table. And then they might ask you, well, how does a router learn the paths that it's going to take? And you say, well, there's 3 ways that a router learns things. There's a term called administrative distance, which is trust between 0 and 255 for how a router trusts things. And the 3 ways that a router determines paths are, is it directly connected? That's a trust level of 0. Is it statically assigned, which is a trust level of 1? Or is it dynamically learned 2 through 255? And if you said that in an interview, I'd be like, fuck, this guy understands routing. I wouldn't dig in anymore. If I asked you about routing and you said a router learns routes by 3 ways, either they're directly connected networks, or they're statically assigned by administrators, or they're dynamically learned. If you said that to me and you even mentioned administrative distance, I wouldn't even ask you I wouldn't ask if you knew how to program the router. I wouldn't ask any of that stuff because I'd be like, that he understands the high level concept of it. So where I'm going with that is, you don't have to take a certification test to know things. A certification test just proves that you studied the body of knowledge. And conversely to that, often I hear people say, that guy's got this certification and I know he's an effing idiot. And I say, certification, passing a test doesn't make you not an idiot. Where I'm going with that is you can get the skills without paying the money. But honestly, like for me, once you get into the industry, I would have my employer pay for it, because a lot of employers will do that. Because it's that old adage where the CEO says, what if we train the people and they leave? And the CFO says, what if we train the people and they leave? And the CEO says, what if we don't train them and they stay? That's a big problem too. Thanks for running through this. Is somewhere we can access this presentation? Yeah, Dietitious, it is right here. This is in our Discord. We've got a section here called presentations. And this is right here. This is an older version of it, but it's right here. It's called Twitch Excelling in the Engineering Field. So it's right here. It's in our presentations channel. I'd say it's about 2 pages up. We don't post a lot of stuff here. These are all the old presentations that people have done when they come and talk to the group and stuff. So there's stuff. There's my Socratic Linux. People love that one where we just ask ourselves questions and do we understand? This one takes about 6 hours to go through. I have this one recorded up on YouTube as well. But Socratic Linux, this is more like meat and potatoes, like we're down in the command line the whole time. Right now, I'm just being very abstract. And for people that haven't been here, you're probably like, well, does this guy actually know Linux? Well, you just have to take everybody else's word for it. But sometimes I'm just all command line. But anyway, so here's the certs that I think are good. There's way more. Like Red Hat certs are great to have. But all of these certs can help you get into the industry in some way, depending on what you want to do from your self-assessment, right? These are free certs that I know about where the training and the taking of the cert is free. So people tell me, Scott, I don't have anything on my resume. Like I do a home lab, I can talk about stuff, but nobody's even giving me a shot. Well, these are all free certs you can go get to at least have something on your resume, right? Every big engineering company uses some type of Six Sigma or Lean Six Sigma, so you can at least get, hey, I've got this basics of engineering. These are free. The API Lifecycle course, this has changed. It's not API Academy anymore, and I think this got bought, and it's changed. We have it up in the Discord right here. We've got a section called Beginner Start here, and if you go up a little bit, here's all the ones, and that was correct the other day. So API Academy Lean Upon. Let's see if this is still working. I don't know if they changed this or if they... Oh, it says request denied now. or learn upon. Let's see if they have. I feel like they took it and they closed it up. So maybe that one's not free anymore, which is unfortunate. But these other ones are still free. Chaos Engineering. So if you want to get into site reliability engineering, there's a really good Chaos Engineering one from Gremlin, and they will. It's probably about a 4-hour study if you wanted to study up and go past it. But there's a really awesome GitHub that this guy keeps right here, this Dastergon. I'm going to link this for you guys because I really think this guy did a great job. There's probably about 100 hours worth of stuff to study and read right here on chaos engineering. And what chaos engineering is, for people who aren't maybe super familiar, it is a scientific methodology where we ask questions. Well, what happened if I pulled that cable? What happened if I did this thing? What if I introduced some chaos into this system? Also, that's one of the funniest names I've seen on Twitch, Fart Breath. I've been watching alongside course for a year now, and this is my first time going through, taking the admin course and having a great time. Good. That's also just such a great name, Fart Breath. I'm going to call you FB so I don't keep saying that. But that is awesome. Guys, there's so much good stuff. This guy has really cultivated a good, just if you want to understand, and you say, hey, do I really need to go get this certification? Well, no, one, it's free, so you can just have a cool free little cert. But two, like if you have nothing else on your resume, this at least shows that you've been studying stuff around this. And again, it sounds cool on a resume. I always get asked when I've been in interviews, they always ask, what's chaos engineering? And I say, it's just the scientific methodology. We ask questions, we minimize the blast radius, we do planning, we start down in our dev environments, and we break things, but in a controlled way to ensure that what we assume is highly available, and that we assume has proper redundancy is redundant. So it's basically just testing that things are what we think they are, that we test the resiliency of our system. That's what chaos engineering is. So anyways, there's that. Okay. I think it's fun. People love it. My resume is a dumpster fire. Well, I mean, hey, at least it's doing something, right? We always say you're never useless. You can always be used as a bad example. But no, that's true. But yeah, a dumpster fire is at least something. And guys, by the way, we have a lot of templates up on the Discord. If you guys need my template, I'll put it back up there. But this is what my one-page resume looks like right here. This is my little one-page resume. It's got my info at the top. It's got a little summary of my qualifications. I actually need to update this because it's longer. This will be 18 years soon because December is my 18 years of teaching college. Here's my current certs. I got to make some of these aren't current anymore, so I got to go move them to my older. And then my experience is all there, and my college, I'll probably be done with the dissertation. I'll probably defend my dissertation right at the end of this year. So I'll probably have my doctorate middle of next year, early 27. So then I'll put that in there. But generally this is, I mean, and you guys know I'm gonna stay at Redline till the end. Like they either have to fire me or I'm just gonna stay there forever. IPv6, hey, I'm telling you, like IPv6 has been coming for like 20 something years now. They've been like, oh, we're gonna get off of this IPv4, but then we're still on it. But hey, this is a really awesome cert. One of our guys, Inspector, he does only IPv6. He's always talking about IPv6, which is awesome. But this cert is free, and it walks you through all of these things if you've never done this. And then they used to give a shirt. A few of the guys, when they did this a few years back, I've never done this one. I need to one of these days, but they used to send you a shirt with it. So it's free, and they give you a shirt, and it's like, that's kind of cool. Like, well, I mean, it's already cool that they're doing this for free. But you can go in, I think you just have to register, have like an email address, but they show you how IPv6 works, and then you can put on a resume. And then when somebody says, hey, do you know everything about TCP IP? You say, well, no, I don't know all of it, but I did do this certification. I do understand how IPv6 works in a network, and I can troubleshoot it. And that, IPv8. All right. So those are free ones. Here's training where the certification is not free, but I know where the training is free. So all the labs on Killer Coda, free. All the other Six Sigma training, free. The training is free. The certification starts to cost, I think, around $75 all the way up to a few hundred, all the way up through like your master black belt Six Sigma. Then Terraform and Vault, they have all kinds of free stuff. They have updated this training nowadays where when you drop in there, you can actually just go hit a button and drop in the lab now. So HashiCorp, Terraform and Vault, huge. They'll at least get you in a door if you have those on there. Data science, Kaggle will teach you all kinds of stuff. You don't even have to sign up. You can just have a Google account and you'll just get right in that. General web, I still reference W3 schools. I remember using them over 20 years ago when I was in college writing HTML for classes and stuff. I used to reference them. They're where I learned almost all of like my basic SQL queries right out of there. And I still reference W3 schools if I need any of that stuff. General Linux, tldp.org, real dry though. This is dry, like I need to understand how Bash is doing something under the hood. This is the Linux documentation project. And then web security, you want to learn how to use, so Portswigger is Burp Suite. So if you want to learn how to use Burp Suite and get into pen testing and that kind of stuff, Portswigger, all of their training is free. The certification for all of these is not free though. So the training is free for all of this stuff. So you just say, hey, I just want to learn a whole bunch of stuff. He does IPv6 all day. Yeah, he talks about IPv6 all day. All right, let's get this out of the way. I just don't want that dripping. And then, yeah, so I think you should build yourself a home lab. But when I first wrote this, it's actually funny. I wrote this before, yeah, this was years ago when I first put this together. Nowadays, I think it's almost just better to do a lot of stuff in the cloud for free. But you can build yourself a home lab. The stuff that I have in my home lab has cost me, my cost is probably closer to about $2,000 nowadays because I do have kind of a bigger server sitting around. This little guy that I don't use for anything, he was about $1,300, but then I had all the other stuff in there, which was probably a little under $1,000. So I'm probably about $2,000 now. But we're talking stuff that I've built spanning a decade, and my little half rack that I have in the other room. You can do a lot of stuff and you can build out a lot of projects, but mainly you want to have a home lab where you can go deploy things and test things and make sure things work like you want. Mr. Geek said, why can not see you live on Discord? Wondering why I didn't get notified. It should have alerted you on Discord. Let me go look. Discord alerted at 4:49, so I've been live for 2.5 hours almost. So actually I probably should get off of here soon. Hey, wifey. Wifey! She must be cutting hair. So she's cutting the family's hair. So she had her parents over. She cut both of their hair. And then one of our nephews came over, so she was cutting his hair. But anyways, personal projects. I think that you should do stuff that interests you, but isn't directly related to what you do, right? Like some of you guys know I enjoy music. I do digital signal stuff. My college, my undergrad is in network engineering and signal engineering, right? So I've done all the radio ham stuff when I was younger. I used to build jammers, right? And I built them within the legal specification of the FCC, which is that you can broadcast anything you want within your home up to 60 feet outside of your home, right? That's what the FCC says. So you can build jammers. You can jam any signal you want in your own home if you didn't know that. Perfectly legal to do that. Not perfectly legal to go take that into a movie and jam everybody's cell phone so that they can't watch and text while you're trying to watch a movie. That's very illegal. I've never done that, ever. But I know how to build them, and I used to build them at home, right? But that's something I do for fun, right? That's like a little fun thing. We used to have a thing out here called Radio Shack. Radio Shack was this huge company that doesn't exist anymore. But you used to just go buy the stuff. You buy it for like $18 and build your own little jammers, which you would only ever use at home for fun, right? Anyways, and I don't have to run Prolog or build labs, but that interests me, so I do that. It helps me stay sharp. I don't know, I'm probably up to like almost 100 labs on Killer Coda now of different topics and stuff like that. So personal projects. I think you should build professional projects, things that interest you but are also directly related to your job. So, you use Ansible. And one of the things that I do, professionally, and I wrote one of these last week for NOAA where I actually stole this from myself. So where's my sandbox at here? This little thing that alerts us that servers have rebooted or not in our home lab environment. I actually have something that sends out to our NOAA Slack. So you should be able to send to like Slack and Discord and Teams and all these things. Just a little webhook that tells you how many servers are up or what's happening in the environment and all that kind of stuff. So we can monitor all kinds of stuff. So that's the thing that I built outside of professional, and I've done it in quite a few different teams. And we just check to make sure everything's clean every morning. And it helps build out the understanding of all that. Jammers, yeah, Colchis, they are fun. They're not hard to build. And we could do most of the jamming with a Pi nowadays, but you have to buy some some other equipment, because you can't broadcast all the signals out of a Pi directly. You have to have a separate components for that, but it's not super hard to do. I had a college professor who was an electrical engineer. He actually is he's the wireless architect for a company out here called McKinnon now. Anyways, he works with one of my other buddies from jiu-jitsu, and he made us build modems. He made us do all this stuff in college, and I was like, what are we doing this for? We're networking engineers. And he's like, yeah, but you're going to want to know this later. And it's like, yeah, cool. Like building modem breadboards and stuff is kind of fun, but it's like not really like a skill that you need that much in the real world anymore. But I don't know, it's fun. Anyway, so I think you should build professional projects out too. I pull all kinds of information and feed it into Grafana in my home lab. Some of you guys have seen that. You guys know how that works if you've been around. I think you should build a book collection. There's really good books. Actually, somebody posted one in just a few hours ago in, where do we have that? I think it's in Reading is Fundamental. Where's that channel? They put these in alphabetical order every now and then it messes me up where everything is. Yeah, there's a tech bundle on all the Linux stuff, and this one comes around every now and then. But my thoughts on it are kind of like this. You can get a lot of information off the internet. Stack Overflow used to keep all the internet running. Nowadays, like all that data has been scraped and everybody's just using AI models and talking to stuff and querying, Google, Gemini, and all these kind of things. And there's all kinds of stuff out there. The internet's great for referencing things, but there's a certain rigor around and correctness that comes from like a book, right? Somebody spent time, got with other people that were experts, and they made sure that all the bases were covered. So I'm a big fan of keeping books around. I think that there's some really good, almost everything on Humble Bundle you could probably find in other ways. However, I'm kind of at a point in my career, and I think as you get more into engineering, you will probably just be like, I'm not going to go spend my time crawling around and pirating books anymore. I'm just going to buy them when they come up on Humble Bundle. We have a book that's out there. This is the only thing I sell, which is the Big Book of Labs on LeanPub. And then there's a massive amount of free books online. This is one of the best ones right here, the Site Reliability Engineering books from Google. If you say, hey, Scott, I want to be, I want to get into site reliability engineering. That's a good field with good pay. And I say, that is an excellent field with excellent pay. Here's the best people in the world at it, giving you all of that stuff for free right here. They will tell you all of the best practices around site reliability engineering such that you could at least go in and at least have a shot talking about it with managers and that kind of stuff. Do you understand all the underlying technologies of everything ever? No, but nobody does. But you understand how to build out, resilient systems and site reliability, so that's all free. GS Volt said, thanks, something on stream. There's so much material online. We'd like to plug YouTube as well for fresh content. Yeah. Man, that's the thing too, and that's this is the problem with the world now. 30 years ago, even 20 years ago, when I got into Linux, I tell you guys, somebody used to throw you a disk and say install Linux, and if you couldn't do it, you wouldn't be a Linux admin. But if you could do it, then they'd show you all the ropes and stuff. Nowadays, it's like the exact opposite. So kind of to your point, there's so much stuff out there. Who do you listen to? And then you find, oh, well, I really like listening to this one guy, but I don't really learn anything for the 8 hours a day that I sit there and listen to him. And look, I mess around on stream too sometimes, but where I'm going with that is find a group, find a community, find something where it's driving you towards your goals, right? Anyway, so there's a massive amount of free books, but to that point is there's more information out there than you have time to commit to. In fact, I don't even think I think if you just said, hey, for this month I'm going to take the whole month off. Let's say you could take a month off, and you said I'm just going to watch all the Netflix that there is. I think they'd put out more content than you'd be able to watch. I'm pretty sure that's the case. And I'm just talking stuff that's not even studying. So where I'm going into that is you have to kind of, this is back to that point of the Count Mondego versus the Count of Monte Cristo. You got to direct your studies to the thing that you want to learn how to do. Big Oof said, I work in medicine. Oh, that's Bid Oof. Sorry. I work in medicine. I see patients every day whose diseases take away from their basic freedoms. To seeing Linux users online boasting smugly about freedom is a ridiculous joke to me. I mean, it's, I think it's one of those things where, you do have, there's always decisions, right? There's all kinds of things going on. Linux users are privileged, but complain about the smallest things like AI bloatware in Windows. Well, all right, fair enough. You guys will see me mostly stay out of those type of arguments. You'll see me mostly just try to show people how to do this stuff professionally. Because I am not a I mean, I am a glasses, and I am kind of like a pocket protector. I never wore a pocket protector though, but what you'll see with me a lot is I don't focus on a lot of the arguments about stuff. I focus on this is what's going to help you get a job, I think. So that's my thoughts on it. All right, book collection, industry discussion. This is maybe one of the most important things I can tell you. And when I was a kid, there used to be this like mental health place out here in Phoenix. It was called Charter, and they had this commercial, and I'll always remember this commercial. It was, if you don't get help at Charter, please get help somewhere. And it's the same thing with me. If you're like, I can't listen to this guy Scott for one more second, I'm okay with that. Find somebody you can listen to. Find a group. Like if you don't vibe, if you go drop in our Discord for a week and you don't vibe with people, that's fine. Go jump in Measure Slack. My buddy Jared built his whole career, and he does data analytics with Google for a really big company called Zotero, Zorro. And he does all their web analytics. They do over $1 billion a year on their website. And he just does all their Google analytics. And he built his whole career around just working in Measure Slack and learning how Google Analytics works. He taught himself completely, did no college in it, and that kind of stuff. Well, anyways, where I'm going with that is immerse yourself in technology. Keep your finger kind of like on the pulse of what's going on. Some of you are really interested in AI topics. No problem with that. Go find people that are working on that. Like the Discord that we run is mostly around getting people into Linux. We have tech talks and people do AI, and we have a lot of people that are based Linux and then moved into other fields and stuff. But find something that's interesting to you, right? And again, stay away from that infotainment. Don't get sucked into things that are just gonna rile you up all the time. You guys have heard of doom scrolling? It is the most addictive thing around to just get on your phone and be like, I'm mad at this group and I'm mad at that group. But does that help you to be a better engineer, to be able to get more food for you and your family? Like, in a lot of ways, that's kind of a waste of your time if you're trying to get to goals. Slack, Discord, Usenet groups, they're all about the topics that you're interested in. North America, so Measure Camp or Measure Slack, you can go find them. That's where my buddy Jared is. If you want to study for CISSP, go find different people and what they're talking about. I think you should get involved with open source projects. If you want to code, you could drop off of here and start coding right now if you wanted to online. If you're willing to write and debug code, you could be working on a project tonight. There's some good HPC stuff. When I first wrote this up, these were brand new, both of these. These are only about 2 years old now. But Ubuntu has their HPC initiative, so Ubuntu is canonical, right? And then HPSF.io is the open source cloud native Linux Foundation. Yeah, it's their Linux Foundation one. And what they're doing, so it's from the Linux Foundation projects, but what they're doing is they want to have a neutral hub for open source projects and high performance software type stuff. So what's going on in that space? What are people doing? They've got a conference for 2026 in Chicago. Did this already happen? Let's see, when is this? March 24th. So this just happened, right? Yeah, this just happened. The big one for us is, what's the big one for us? I never go to it, but everybody, my whole company goes to it, but I never go to it each year. It's, oh God, what is that one for HPC? I forget what it is. It was in Raleigh this year, but I don't remember. Yeah, it's supercomputing. Yeah, it's supercomputing. Did you go to that one, Fisherman? I don't remember. I get asked to go to. I've been asked to go to it like the last 6 years, and I'm always I'll just stay and keep the systems running. People go to supercomputing. Yeah, and it was in Chicago, and then I think it was just like in Atlanta, and I think it was in Raleigh. It's been around some different places. So, all right. So our review. I think you should learn how you learn. I think you should learn that you have proclivities to how you learn, but you probably learn more similar to other people than you do differently. I think that even if you don't want to pay for certifications, you should get. You should drive. If you've got nothing else to drive towards, go find the body of knowledge, the course objectives for whatever industry you want to get into. CCNA if you want to do networking, RHCSA if you want to do Red Hat, right? And start to drive yourself towards those skills, even if you're not going to take the cert right away, right? And learn those things. I think you should build out a home lab or get some of the free compute that you can get from AWS or Azure. Get out there and build stuff. Just practice building stuff. That's what engineers do. We know things and we build stuff, right? That's what we do. Wait, so I mentioned getting involved in open source projects, and I found a Debian fork project called DevVuon. That's interesting. What is that? Let's go look at that. What is that? Let's go look at that. It's a new distribution that somebody's been using. DevVuon. Oh, it's a Debian. You probably said Debian, didn't you? I said in my head I got Ubuntu. Yeah, let's see what this is. Interesting. All right. Oh, without system. So some people will never like systemd, right? So that's funny. So it's a fork of Debian without systemd. All right. And then init free. Okay, that's. I mean, that guys, this is an argument that happens. I'd say monthly in our server, or at least discussions around this come up. So systemd versus init scripts. I think nowadays systemd is the model to learn, because professionally that's what you're going to run into the most. But there are a lot of init purists out there. There's nothing wrong with being an init purist, much like there's nothing wrong with being an arch purist. I just tell people sometimes when you go to get a job, you're going to want to know these other things. So this is interesting though. It's they've got all their different versions. They've got a Beowulf one. Let's go look at this. Excalibur. Got in here. Deb.devuon. Okay. We could download this and run this in the home lab for fun. Let's see what versions they have out here. Do they have I just want to get the server ISO. Oh, DVD ISO. There we go. Where do they have this? There we go. All right. Doesn't really matter. Desktop live. We could run this one. Let's go pull this. So we'll pull it directly into our go to hostbox 2, and we will wget -o. We'll download it real quick. Let's see how long it takes to download. And then this this ISO share, this is an NFS share that goes right into my Proxmox, and I can just stand the box up. I can just mount it right as I stand it up. So, oh man, I'll go. You guys will get me down a nerd rabbit hole if you let me. But I will play with that. We will download that. But we were here, we're talking about home labs, and then look, we can just build stuff out, do compute, do whatever we want. I think you should get a book collection, just because I think it's fun to have books. I have every book. This is a fun fact. I have every book that I ever went to college with, and I have every book that I ever taught for college with. I've been going to college for 26 years now, and I've been teaching college for almost 18. So I've been in some variation of college for the last 26 years, which is really funny because I was not a great student in high school, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to go in the Army, and then I'll never do college again, and then that didn't work out. And then yeah, I found out like that was not. Anyway, so industry discussion groups, podcast. I did well in the Army. I didn't like all the dumb stuff. So I got out after my my 4 years, 3 months, and 4 years, 3 months, and 6 days were up. Yeah. So industry discussion groups, podcasts, blogs, open source, you got to plug into something. It doesn't have to be us. It doesn't have to be the Professional Linux users group. It can be anywhere that you can thrive. And honestly, like if you find yourself going in a Discord and you're just arguing all the time with people about politics or fucking what version of video driver is best for your NVIDIA, I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not saying you can't spend your time doing that. I'm just saying that doesn't drive towards your goal. One of the best things maybe I ever heard somebody say in this topic was I heard a radio DJ. This was 20 something years ago. I think I was still in the Army when I heard this. There was a radio DJ and he was talking about, he's like, he said this. He said, I'm all for smoking weed. He's like, he smoked weed. He even said, he's like, I smoke weed, right? That was him. And he goes, but if I had a goal to walk to the top of like Everest or something, I would maybe put that thing down that I like doing. And this isn't me who's like the most straight edge guy that doesn't drink and doesn't smoke weed telling you don't smoke weed. I don't care what you do. What I'm saying is maybe if that's keeping you from your goal or not helping you while you have the goal, you put that thing down and do it. This is some radio DJ, and I just always really liked the way he put it, because he wasn't saying like, you can't do that, I don't do it, so you can't do it. He was just saying, hey, maybe while you have goals, you change up what you're gonna do, right? If you want to be, if you want to be a grappling world champion, you probably need to put down the cheeseburgers. You probably need to put down some of these other things so that you can go be this grappling world champion that you want to be. So, anyways, that's something. But find a group that resonates with you. If you find yourself arguing all the time, that's probably not the best group for you. But again, do whatever you want. Just maybe go, well, I'm gonna limit my doom scrolling to 1 hour a day or something, and never until after I'm done studying. That's a good goal. Some people have a hard time sleeping at night, and they find that if they put their phone down for the last 30 minutes a night and read, it actually helps calm your brain down and they fall asleep easier. And then they're like, I love playing on my phone, but if I read for the last 30 minutes before I go to sleep at night, it helps me this and this and this, whatever, right? And then this last one, which I didn't really touch on here in the discussion, but if you find that there's nobody to teach you something at a company, there's always the option of moving somewhere else where you can grow. One of our guys who was actually here talking earlier, he had been, I think, like 11 years as a manager at like a smaller firm, smaller company. They had hired him out of college, and he was kind of like, at one point, he was even in our Discord when he did this, he was like, this is kind of a not as big enough pond for me. So he jumped over to AWS because he wanted to kind of see, and he's been at AWS for probably, I don't know, four years now, if I had to guess. And he just was like, hey, I'm going to go and see how I do in this bigger pond. And he's been doing pretty well over there. And he's a solutions architect, senior solutions architect guy with them. And that's what he does now, is he works in a slightly bigger company. Anyways, and now he can both mentor others. He writes blog posts and stuff like that. But also he probably has people that can mentor him in the different areas around or whatever. So my point is, if you're in a small enough company, mentor others, write your documentation, do things that make these things work better. And then if you can't find anywhere to grow, maybe you have to move somewhere else. And that's a thing that's real for companies. So, all right, questions, just, I always say email me, but just find me on Discord. Guys, I'm always on Discord. You can ask anybody that's here that's been in Discord. I'm always on it. I sleep at night, but aside from that, I'm always on Discord. So, all right, that thing's downloaded. What I should do, I need to do Control-Shift-T over here to pull up this, and here's my SHA-256 sums, right? Let's open that open with Notepad++. All right, let's make sure that what we downloaded is correct here. So I do a SHA-1 sum. Was those 256 against this one that I just downloaded, right? And what is my SHA sum on that? And typically you can just look at the first 5. So 7587, 7587A, okay? And then typically at the end, FEFF0, FEFF0. And for the most part, that's, you can dig all the way in if you want to, but for the most part, that's going to be pretty accurate. You can also do something like this if you want to. Whoops. And then if you really had to, you could do this. You could take this, throw it into temp compare, right? Something like this. I mean, if you really wanted to, and then vi temp compare o, right click, shift D $, and then if you did a unique -c on temp compare, it would tell you take away the -c. Oh, those are not. Oh, I'm dumb. They are the same line. They're the same line. I had a space at the end. I'm dumb. Anyways, Mr. Geek, been a while since I joined you live. I'm 36, transitioning from electronics into SRE DevOps. Finished your cloud computing degree. Nice. Built many home labs. Use Linux daily. Today's session really matches where I am. Thank you. Yeah, nice. Hey, Mr. Geek, like this stuff is just kind of, you know, what we try to do. You can always hang out in the Discord. You're probably down there, but that's where a lot of this stuff happens. I tell you guys, this isn't very persistent. Like the online stuff. Yeah, sure, you could watch me later, or you could do whatever on Twitch or YouTube, but this isn't as good as like what we have going on down the Discord. This is really just me telling you guys that place exists. So, all right, I got to go walk with the wife. I live in a desert, right? I live out in Phoenix, so it was like 100 today, but it's dropping pretty nice at night. So I think it's in the 70s. We're gonna go take a little walk around the neighborhood. So it's good seeing you guys. I will be back around. I'll be on more, probably 3 or 4 times a week if I can. Let me go pop into our end of stream. Let's go find somebody to raid on the YouTube side or on the Twitch side.